My name is Jiang Chen, a true rich second-generation heir from Lanxing. My parents passed away early, and I lived with my younger sister Lulu in a luxurious villa with supercars and tens of billions in my bank account, living a life of pure luxury. But fate struck hard. I was diagnosed with an incurable poverty-related illness, and I only had less than 3 months left to live. After fulfilling all my wishes, my final desire was to conquer the hardest achievement in the game Shen Yu Illusion Realm. I spent billions of real money and grinded day and night for over 10 days, finally obtaining the rarest server title. Lulu, my caring younger sister, worriedly said I was playing games all night again and told me to take care of my health. I laughed it off and said I had just woken up. Suddenly, a strange wave of sleepiness hit me. My head spun, vision darkened, and my body felt like it was being crushed. When I woke up, I was confused about where I was. I clearly just logged out of the game, but a desperate voice rang out beside me, saying the hero had come to save the continent of Enla. The voice felt strangely familiar. I looked around in shock. Everything looked exactly like Shenyu Illusion Realm, the game I had farmed for days. And that small demon merchant standing there was the scam NPC who drained all my resources. But now it was shrunken in size. Was I hallucinating from playing too much? It seemed to read my thoughts and said this was not an illusion, telling me to slap myself if I didn't believe it. Then it kicked me straight in the face. The pain was real. I had truly transmigrated. Before I could process it, a loud bang echoed as the door was kicked open. A burly man rushed in and shouted for Jiang Chen to get out. He said he would take his sister away today, whether he agreed or not. A familiar female voice calmly spoke, telling him to leave and that she would handle Shen Wanhao. I froze when I saw Lulu appear right there in front of me. Even more shocking, Shen Wanhao, the man who once harassed Lulu on Lanxing, was also here. Before I could process anything, the small demon Fufu began explaining. It said I had already died in my previous life, but because I was the only one who achieved the hidden ending in Shenyu Illusion Realm, the system granted me a second life inside the game world. It also explained a recharge refund system, where the more money I spent, the greater the reward. But I had spent too much, causing a massive energy backlash that transformed my body. So overcharging myself basically backfired. Fufu still gave me some benefits, but I still couldn't understand why Lulu and Shen Wanhao were here. My head was spinning. Back to the main issue, Shen Wanhao's goal today was to force Lulu to become his. He declared she had two choices, submit, or he would destroy the Jiang family and take her by force. Seeing me silent, he immediately threw a punch at me. But unexpectedly, I was completely unharmed. He widened his eyes in shock and said it was impossible that I could block his punch. I smirked and said that in this game system, he was only a first-year martial fighter. With the golden scale armor Fufu gave me, I had no problem tanking attacks up to level 3. He was nothing to me. Seeing he couldn't beat me, he called his subordinates to attack while threatening to destroy the Jiang family. I didn't care at all. I activated my divine artifact Fang Nan Destruction Fang of 5 Realms. I treated them like NPCs or real players alike. Today, I would show these minions what real pay-to-win power looks like. In less than 90 seconds, I wiped them all out and stored my divine weapons back into my system space. Before I could even catch my breath, a curvy woman with curly hair rushed in panic. She sternly ordered someone to clean up the mess and take those people away immediately. It was Aunt Meng. She appeared unexpectedly as well, with bandages still on her face and arms. Her eyes filled with worry as she looked at me and said emotionally that Jiang Chen and Lulu had nearly been deceived by Shen Wanhao. She cried with relief, saying she didn't know what she would have done if anything happened to us. Then she hugged both of us tightly, finally relieved that we were safe. The Shen family suffered heavy losses. They would not let this go easily. Aunt Meng nodded in agreement. She said if they didn't resist, they would just be waiting for death. But the Shen family was not easy to deal with. She asked what kind of strength I currently had. I thought for a moment. In Shenyu Illusion Realm, all classes can evolve from beginner to professional, elite, special grade, and beyond. Each rank boosts power by several times, even dozens of times. Shen Wanhao, for example, is a second-tier martial fighter, meaning a professional rank. As for me, I smiled confidently and said I was even below beginner level, just entry rank. Aunt Meng was stunned. I laughed and said that was normal for a true newbie. Hearing this, she panicked and told Lulu to pack immediately so we could leave. She said she would stay behind to hold them off and buy us time. I gently placed a hand on her shoulder and said there was no need to worry. Even if I was only entry level, dealing with second and third-year opponents wasn't a problem. I took out 2 books and handed one to Aunt Meng and one to Lulu. Aunt Meng froze and asked what these treasures were. Seeing the cover titled Shenyu Demon Exorcism Technique, she immediately frowned and said she got a headache just looking at it. I then looked at Lulu. Her book was called Shen Yu Beauty Magic Art. As her brother, I never wanted her to learn such a support-style technique, but under this crisis involving the Shen family, she insisted on helping. Lulu held the book tightly and said she couldn't always rely on me and Aunt Meng anymore. She had to do something herself. I comforted her a little, telling her she didn't need to learn too much, just focus on her strengths. The system rewards were ridiculously powerful. Aunt Meng only practiced a few breaths of the demon exorcism technique, yet the results already surpassed a full day of normal cultivation. Unfortunately, it still felt too shallow. The entire skill book only contained one chapter. To unlock the next part, I needed to level up first. The next day, I brought a fishing rod, a bait bag, and a hook, walking casually toward Yunshu Lake. The surface was calm like a mirror under the sunlight. I spent the whole day fishing, but in reality, I was preparing for a crazy mission hunting the Golden Scale King's gallbladder as a leveling material. A beginner like me was assigned a deathier quest. What a joke, but I had 10 different job classes. If I only had one class, things would be easier. Luckily, I had already cleared similar side quests in my past life as a gamer. Using my old fishing experience, I carefully lured the Golden Scale King onto the hook. As expected, it appeared in an instant, just as predicted. I immediately activated a special frequency, controlling the fishing rod like I was playing a high-stakes chess match underwater. At the perfect moment, I pulled hard on the rod, but the Golden Scale King was nowhere to be seen. Instead, a mermaid girl appeared, seemingly mid-attack, though her expression was unclear. She introduced herself as Senna, saying she had been imprisoned under Yunshu Lake by enemies. By eating the bait I used, she had recovered her strength and broken free from her restraints. Thinking back, I couldn't remember this event ever happening in my previous playthrough. It seemed the world of Shen Yu Illusion Realm still held countless mysteries I had only just scratched the surface of. Senna kept calling me her benefactor. I figured I might as well get some profit out of it, and told her to go hunt the Golden Scale King for me. Unexpectedly, she refused outright and promised she would repay the favor later instead. Honestly, she just wanted a free meal of my bait. Lucky for her, I had spent money like water in my past life, and the system's return benefits made my body absurdly strong. Otherwise, I would have captured her on the spot. Just kidding. Seeing I didn't demand anything, Senna leaned in and kissed my cheek. It turned out to be a merfolk marking ritual, leaving an imprint so she could find me again. I had just transmigrated and already got robbed of a kiss. My luck was truly terrible. Still, as a mermaid, walking on land was inconvenient for her. Senna transformed her tail into slender human legs. She even borrowed a pair of pants from my inventory. Good thing I had a spare uniform. After that, she left immediately. Preparing special bait for the Golden Scale King would take too much time, so I decided to find another method instead. I wandered through the nearby forest and unexpectedly ran into a girl named Qing Yu and her uncle, her second uncle. They were blocked by a Tier 3 wolf demon. For them, a beast of this level was an unstoppable threat. Ordinary people would only face death. But the uncle was truly righteous. He chose to stay behind and protect Qing Yu, even if it cost him his life. Looking down from above, I muttered that this dog was pretty big. It might make a decent pet if I took it back. Without hesitation, I jumped straight down toward the wolf demon. The uncle and niece were secretly relieved, thinking they were saved. But seeing me just jump down with no technique, they thought I was committing suicide. Taking advantage of the moment, the uncle grabbed Qing Yu and tried to escape, planning to build a memorial for me later. Before they got far, I landed safely without a scratch. Stammering, the uncle asked if I was okay and where the demon wolf had gone. I pointed behind him casually. The wolf demon was lying motionless, seemingly fainted from fear. In my past life, I knew this area had a beast king, but I forgot the exact location. I planned to use this wolf as a guide. When I walked toward it, it kept pretending to be dead. I snorted and said, "Playing dead? Then it'll knock you out for real." The wolf immediately jumped up and happily offered to carry me on its back. I said goodbye to Qing Yu and her uncle and rode the wolf toward the Beast King. After some time, I finally arrived. The Beast King, named Pyr, was a legendary Tier 5 divine beast, born with the power to command all beasts and birds. Seeing a beginner like me, it thought I came to beg for something, but I only said one thing: I want you to go catch fish. The entire forest fell silent. Birds and beasts stared in shock with their mouths open. The Beast King roared in disbelief. How dare a human command it, the ruler of all beasts, to catch a fish? I shrugged and said I wasn't asking for free labor. If it had conditions, it could say them. Then I casually added that its breath smelled like it had a mouth infection lately. The surrounding beasts froze in silence. The Beast King became even more furious and roared again. It said it had been challenged too many times and would send me straight to hell. It spread its wings and charged at me. I calmly kicked out with perfect precision, aiming directly at its most painful rotten tooth. The kick landed cleanly, and the tooth flew out. I smirked and said I even helped remove it, so it should feel better now. Enraged, the Beast King roared that I had been hiding my strength and prepared to unleash its fury. But suddenly, it froze. It realized the pain in its mouth was gone. A strange sense of relief washed over it. Still, it remained cautious, suspecting I had come to assassinate it. After probing me for a while, it demanded my true purpose. If I wanted a fight, we should do it directly, no tricks. I sighed and said I already told it, I just needed it to catch a golden scale kingfish. It refused to believe me. I told it I was simply helping remove its rotten tooth, so it should return the favor. After half a day of arguing, the Beast King reluctantly agreed to help me. It led me through a shortcut toward Yunshu Lake. The deeper I went, the stranger it felt. I didn't remember this path in my previous playthrough. Whatever, I decided to continue. Suddenly, vines shot out from all directions and bound me tightly. It turned out to be the Beast King's trap. It laughed proudly, saying the vines were part of an ancient formation, enough to imprison anyone even in weakened form. It demanded I reveal my true intentions or be left here as monster bait. I sighed and said this wolf was impossible to communicate with. In my past life, I had played a side account as a beginner formation master. That should be enough to break this. I called Fu from the system and attempted to switch classes. Unfortunately, due to body restrictions, switching classes would reduce my physical stats. This body still had many flaws. I ignored the risk and changed my class to Formation Master. Instantly, a flood of memories surged into my mind. Formations could weaken enemies, strengthen allies, control terrain, and even alter game rules. But regardless of type, the core was always the formation eye. Destroy it, and the entire structure collapses from the root. The Beast King Beer stared at me in shock, wondering what this human was trying to do. Using the new memories in my mind, I carefully scanned the area and quickly located the formation core. Without hesitation, I struck decisively. In an instant, the formation collapsed. But suddenly, a shadow flashed past. A small wolf girl appeared in front of me, breathing in relief and thanking me repeatedly. She said she had been sealed for hundreds of years and never expected to be freed. Only then did I realize I had accidentally saved her. The Beast King froze in disbelief, as if he had just seen his greatest enemy. Then it snapped back to reality and rushed forward, shouting "Mother." Before it could reunite, it was slapped flying by a devastating strike. The little wolf girl was actually Garuda, one of the 4 great divine beasts of Shenyu Illusion Realm. And Beer, the mighty Beast King, was just her foolish son. Garuda had been sealed for hundreds of years, so it was no surprise I had never seen her in the game, only heard fragments of legends. Even as a legendary beast, she had weakened over time, and due to offending the wrong opponent, she was sealed inside the formation. She never expected her idiot's son to accidentally lead me to break it. Seeing the situation turn bad, Beer tried to slip away, but it was useless. After admitting everything, he immediately received another loving punch from his mother and collapsed. After dealing with her son, Garuda jokingly said she would cook him into soup for me. I laughed and thought, no need for that, I still need him to help me catch the Golden Scale King. With Beer's help, it took less than half a day to capture the Golden Scale King. As expected from a beast, its fishing ability was unmatched. No matter where the fish hid in Yunshu Lake, he could track it down perfectly. My goal was simply to obtain the Golden Scale King's gallbladder, and the fish in front of me was enough. Without hesitation, I used the material for leveling more precisely. I swallowed the gallbladder directly. The taste was absolutely disgusting and unforgettable. After finishing, I said goodbye to Garuda and her son, planning not to meet them again. But Garuda insisted on staying in contact, saying that if I ever needed help, I could call her and she would come immediately. I casually nodded and walked away without caring. Behind me, the mother and son whispered. Beer complained that she didn't need to be so respectful toward a mere human. Even at his peak, he might not lose to me. Garuda scolded him sharply, saying I was clearly a true beginner human, hiding nothing. But with such absurd potential at low level, she believed I would surpass them sooner or later. Because of that, Garuda placed great hope in me, expecting me to help them in the future. The scene shifted to a bustling town. I entered a shop intending to buy some spirit stones. Unexpectedly, just a few stones cost 7,200 coin fragments. Seeing my hesitation, the shop owner's face darkened and he shouted at me. He rudely told me to get out if I had no money, calling me a waste of time. I thought to myself that I should have brought more funds if I knew materials were this expensive. Then I remembered that after swallowing the Golden Scale King's gallbladder, I still had 3 normal spirit stones, 3 rare spirit stones, and 1 sacred spirit stone. But the system also forced me to eat raw monkey meat. My life was truly miserable. Leaving the shop, I wandered around the streets casually, looking left and right. Suddenly, a stall caught my attention. The sign read, Divination of the past, prediction of the future. 3 readings a day, only for those with fate. The owner was a girl named Vita, with a cute face, full chest, slim waist, and perfect curves. She claimed she only read fortunes for those with fate, but if sincerity was enough, fate could be created. My eyes lit up. Fortune telling? That sounded interesting. In the middle of the crowded street, I sat behind the divination table, smiled confidently, and shouted loudly, "Fortune-telling here. No scams, no tricks. Come try it." The loud voice immediately caught the attention of Rita across the street. She walked over and slammed her hand on the table, glaring at me angrily. I looked up and met her arrogant gaze. She shouted that I was trying to steal her customers. I remained calm and smiled provocatively, saying that she only read for the chosen, while I welcomed everyone. Rita leaned in close, her voice cold, warning me that I was breaking the rules and she didn't like it. Then she challenged me directly, saying we should settle this with a duel to decide whose divination skills were superior. The girl reached out and lifted my chin, proposing that the winner would stay here while the loser would leave voluntarily. I scratched my head and laughed dryly. Honor as a fortune teller? I never had that in the first place. But my eyes flashed with calculation. I was short on money, so I agreed. Rita smiled brightly, satisfied with the outcome, and accepted the deal. The referee of the match was Fufu. The first divination battle on Vintai Street officially began. Fufu floated in the air and announced the first question. What color shirt will the next person at the intersection wear? Rita answered without hesitation. Purple. I calmly said yellow. At that moment, a girl appeared at the intersection, wearing purple clothes with golden patterns. Both answers were correct. Rita frowned slightly, a bit unsettled, but said it was just a close call. She insisted the next question would decide everything. Fufu twisted in the air and asked the second question. What color is the next passerby's hair? Rita confidently said, short hair. I immediately replied bald. Right then, Fufu flew over and casually removed the wig of a man passing by. In this case, neither of us was wrong. Fufu stepped forward and declared the final deciding question. The weather prediction until evening. Rita calmly predicted clear skies. I immediately shook my head. Wrong. There will be heavy rain, torrential rain. Rita stared in disbelief. How is that possible? A moment later, the sky shifted. Thunder roared. Rain poured down heavily, exactly as I predicted. The streets quickly emptied, as the atmosphere around the divination stall grew heavy and silent. Only the sound of relentless rain remained. Rita lowered her head and whispered in disbelief, I lost. I smiled faintly and glanced at Fufu with meaning, brushing my hair back with a confident look. My hidden profession wasn't just fortune teller, it was star seer, a heightier class far beyond normal divination. Through the stars, I could read fate, predict outcomes, and even influence weather. No wonder Fufu chose weather-related questions. Fufu leaned in and whispered, Big brother, without me, what would you do? Meanwhile, Rita calmly admitted defeat. A loss is a loss. I will never appear on this street again. She handed over her divination orb. She smiled as if she wasn't a loser at all, and said she was leaving everything to me. I asked in surprise, There is such a good deal? Then she suddenly quoted a price, 5,000 spirit coins. I panicked. I have to pay? I instantly put on a pitiful expression. What now? I failed my divination business. Maybe I should change careers. I stayed firm and took out 2 gold coins. I'll only pay 2,000. Rita beamed with joy and snatched the money. So much? Then she tilted her head, thinking deeply. Suddenly, she leaned in and kissed me on the nose. Before I reacted, she followed up with a full French kiss. This is the reward for the winner, master. She smiled happily and walked away teasing. Master, after we finish brewing the results, don't forget to teach your disciple the secret divination arts. I stood there blushing. I never agreed to be her master, nor to any of this. Rita turned back and waved, her eyes hinting at something unclear. Goodbye, good luck. I felt something was off, but I ignored it. I just needed to earn enough money for spirit stones. Soon after the rain stopped, just as I was setting up my stall again, a group of men stormed in. The leader pointed at me and shouted, Surround this fraud fortuna teller. My face darkened. You've got the wrong person, haven't you? The leader explained that a week ago, Rita had come here and displayed her skills, attracting the attention of Lord Proro. She received a large deposit to handle a problem. But after taking the money, she said the issue was too difficult and needed her master. The leader slammed the table. Now she's gone. Lord Pro's condition is getting worse. What are you going to do about it? I blankly replied. Then go find her master. Why surround me? Then I froze, remembering Rita's strange behavior earlier. I asked slowly, Who exactly is Rita's master? The leader sneered. Isn't it you? Everyone just heard it. I held my forehead in silence. Damn it, I've been set up by that girl, and now there's no escaping it. Fei Shuhan issued a cold ultimatum. Either refund the deposit or handle Proro's problem. I chuckled and glanced at Fufu, thinking there was only one choice. Fufu nodded and smiled, then suddenly bolted away at full speed. I shouted and chased after her, asking why she ran first. Fei Shuhan snapped in rage and ordered his men to stop them. The thugs rushed in, swinging their swords wildly. Even with my current spirit master level, I easily dodged everything. I smirked, thinking these lackeys couldn't touch me. I landed near a corner, but my luck suddenly turned. My body weakened instantly, and I cursed under my breath. Seeing them close in, I gritted my teeth, refusing to give up. Suddenly, my hands slammed into a pair of soft chests that appeared out of nowhere. Before I could react, my face crashed into a fruit stall in pain. Instinctively, I grabbed the person beside me, and we both fell hard. Fufu rushed over and teased, saying I was still useless as expected. Lying on the ground, I looked up and saw Fei Shuhan approaching coldly. The girl on top of me blushed and spoke excitedly. From above, she asked why I was embarrassed to be here. The scene shifted to a grand tower, where a man introduced himself as Lin Wei, president of the Shu Yun Zhen Merchant Guild, thanking the expert for saving them at North Boundary Mountain. Qing Wu blushed and shyly thanked the expert. I smiled, realizing I had casually saved this uncle and niece, and said to call me Jiang Chen. Lin Huai explained everything to Fei Shuhan, clearing the misunderstanding. But Fei Shuhan still refused to back down, insisting on taking me back to report to his master. Lin Huai narrowed his eyes and responded coldly. 3 muscular men stepped in, blocking the exit. Fei Shuhan asked coldly if Lin Huai would oppose his master for an outsider. Lin Huai calmly sipped his tea and declared Jiang Chen a guest of honor of the guild, challenging Fei Shuhan. Fei Shuhan demanded what Lin Huai truly wanted. Lin Huai smiled and proposed a neutral solution. He asked me to go to Proro's home to exorcise the evil spirit. He added that Proro must pay the full agreed fee without exception. I nodded, thinking money makes things simple, and agreed to go. That night, the group arrived at a magnificent castle. Fred led me in and announced that Proro had arrived. Pros sat on a high throne and ordered me forward. Fred warned me not to reveal anything I would see. I was confused and asked what was so secret. Fred glanced nervously at Proro's unusually swollen belly. I froze in shock, shouting internally that he looked pregnant. I stared at Proro in disbelief. I roared internally, wondering who had done this to him. Proro explained from his throne that his condition was caused by a dark spirit in the house. I became serious, realizing this was an exorcism job as well as fortune-telling and healing. A boy suddenly ran in and asked worriedly if his father was okay. Proro smiled gently and patted the boy's head. The boy tearfully said he did not want his father to end up like his brother. The emotional scene almost moved me to tears as Proro held the child and spoke sadly. I cut in and asked where the evil spirit actually was. The scene shifted to a desolate mountain area. 2 figures quietly appeared at the entrance of a dark cave. Fred led the way with a torch, saying Proro had gathered 13 famous exorcists for this job. He told me to just assist and promised a generous reward. I looked at the scene in front of me with a disgusted face, thinking they were playing with fire inside a sealed cave, not afraid of carbon monoxide poisoning. I turned toward the cave entrance, took a deep breath, and felt a lot better. The 3 masters turned around and shouted at me, asking who I was and if I could take responsibility for disrupting their exorcism. Fei Shuhan broke into a cold sweat and quickly explained that I was an assistant they had hired to help. The disciple of the 3 masters glared at me proudly and snorted, telling me to just stand aside, because his master alone was enough. I shrugged, not caring, and said as long as I get paid, do whatever you want. The 3 masters returned to their formation and began chanting. A brilliant cross-shaped light appeared behind them, gradually forming a massive golden mirror. The disciple excitedly shouted, praising his master for controlling such a high-level artifact. The 3 masters arrogantly pointed their staff forward and declared the spirit would die. The golden mirror shot forward and bound the female ghost with chains, but she refused to submit and roared as she broke free. The 3 masters sneered, claiming the spirit had already been suppressed. In the next moment, the female ghost rushed in and appeared right in front of him, roaring in fury. The master gritted his teeth and quickly controlled the golden sword again, refusing to give up. But the female ghost casually swatted it away, disrupting its trajectory. She licked her lips and charged like prey closing in. I calmly ordered the disciple to tell his master to stop, warning that he would die if this continued. The disciple snapped back angrily, questioning who I thought I was to criticize his master. I explained calmly that his master was overusing his life force to forcefully maintain the Saint Cross formation and was already at his limit. The disciple grabbed my collar and demanded I repeat myself. My expression darkened and my eyes flashed dangerously as I told him to let go immediately. The disciple flinched but still insisted his master could not lose. Before he finished speaking, the three masters were slammed to the ground by the female ghost, battered and humiliated. The disciple rushed over in panic, calling for his master, who muttered that things had gone bad. Above, the female ghost smiled and spread her wings, revealing a hellish dimension behind her as she declared their defeat. Fei Shuhan panicked and screamed that he did not want to die there. I frowned, formed a hand seal, and summoned glowing golden energy, thinking the Saint Cross technique should end here. The master warned me not to act recklessly, saying his formation protected the entire area, and I should run while I still could. I calmly replied that just because he could not do it did not mean I could not. The master stared at me in shock. In an instant, a flaming circle formed around me, and countless fire spears appeared along with a radiant golden Saint Cross. The master broke into a cold sweat in disbelief, asking how this was possible. I controlled the fire spears and aimed them directly at Vian Vian. She screamed as a golden echo sound reverberated like it came from deep hell. A violent energy burst exploded from her and knocked back both the master and his disciple. I remained unharmed and commented casually about how messy everything was. Vian Vian roared in anger, telling me to stop acting so arrogant. She ripped the spears out of her body and stared at me coldly, saying I was not simple. She charged at full speed, believing she still had the advantage. But she was met with a barrage of golden weapons forming in mid-air. Vian Vian froze, breaking into a cold sweat. I smiled faintly and raised my hand, questioning whether I had used my full strength. Vian Vian stammered in disbelief. She collapsed to the ground like a child throwing a tantrum and refused to fight anymore. I crossed my arms and smirked, saying I preferred her arrogant attitude earlier, then demanded why she made Proro pregnant with an evil curse. Vian Vian immediately acted pitiful and cried out that she was wronged and only wanted to help him. I froze and asked again, "Help him?" She shrank her body and knelt down, explaining softly, "Not long ago, a boy's soul wandered here after dying unjustly, and his final wish was to stay with his father, Proro. His soul was too weak and would soon vanish, so she turned it into a fetus and placed it inside Proro's body to nourish it until it could be reborn." I said coldly, showing no sympathy, asking if she wasn't afraid this would kill him. Vian Vian quickly defended herself, insisting she meant no harm and had never hurt any humans. I studied her carefully and confirmed she truly carried no human blood or aura. I nodded and said I would let her go for now, but I would check Proro first myself. On the stairs, Fei Shuhan was already waiting and said everything was resolved. I looked at him and asked lightly when he had been hiding there, telling him it was fine now. Fei Shuhan noticed the girl behind me and froze, stammering for her to leave quickly because there might still be spirits below. Vian Vian looked up and smiled calmly, saying she wasn't afraid. Fei Shuhan screamed in terror and ran back into the castle. All three returned to Proro, who was holding little Toby and crying emotionally. I sent a green energy stream into Pro's abdomen, warning that if the thing kept absorbing his power, he would die. In an instant, the skull-like aura inside him shattered and dispersed. Proro returned to normal with short black hair and asked me to help investigate what had happened to Toby. I took the payment and refused, saying I had other matters to handle. I turned to leave as Proro cried desperately, mentioning the Sacred Starstone prophecy. I immediately stopped and asked him to explain more about the Sacred Starstone. Sometime later, I appeared with Qing Wu on a crowded street. Fu Fu sat on the ground happily eating snacks, saying this place had the best food. Qing Wu asked if I would stay longer, but I refused, saying I needed to go after the Sacred Starstone lead. She shyly handed me the items and payment, explaining everything cost 2,700 silver coins, plus an additional 3,000 gold as thanks. I was shocked and complained that the merchant had tried to sell them for 7,200 before. Qing Wu smiled gently, saying merchants always chase profit, but I could come to her any time in the future. She promised I would never be taken advantage of. Lin Huai then suggested Qing Wu should manage the entire trading street. I covered my mouth, thinking it wasn't a bad idea since it could save me a lot of money later. Qing Wu gently placed her hand over mine and told me to return safely. I awkwardly replied, slightly flustered, and promised I would. I grabbed Fu Fu, who was still eating, and pulled her up. She struggled and complained that she wasn't done eating yet. Lin Huai watched us leave and teased Qing Wu about not keeping me if she liked me. Qing Wu smiled firmly, saying she would expand the trade network across the continent instead. Night fell, and we arrived at a small town and checked into a room. I said we should rest here since the next town was still far away. I looked at Fufu lying on the bed and asked if she hadn't bathed. She stretched lazily and said she just wanted to sleep. I ignored it and muttered, only then realizing how freezing the room was. I walked to the wardrobe and opened it. Vian Vian was inside wearing a maid outfit, looking at me eagerly and asking if I needed room service for free. I said nothing and slammed the wardrobe door shut. She reappeared and said she could even help me take a bath. I sighed and turned away, only to feel her silently appear behind me again. I snapped at her to get out immediately. Vienne pouted and muttered if she really had to do this. Suddenly, a man appeared nearby, clearly well prepared. He looked at the pretty maid and leered, asking if he could get service instead. Vienne's expression twisted instantly into something monstrous. The man screamed in terror and ran away. Passers-by panicked, wondering where the ghost came from. Hearing the noise, I opened the door and called her in. Vienne walked in happily, saying she liked the rough treatment, and I closed the door again and asked why she was clinging to me. The room fell silent except for Fufu snoring. Vienne sighed and said her story began with her past life. She tried to explain in detail, but I stopped her and told her to keep it short. She admitted she wanted a physical body again and needed my help. I frowned and asked if she was serious, and she said she would belong to me if I agreed. I flatly refused. I explained that restoring a body required at least a high-level diviner, while I was only at beginner rank. Vienne repeated in shock that I was only beginner rank. Fufu rolled over in bed and murmured in her sleep. Vienne asked how a beginner could suppress her so easily. She suddenly knelt and declared she would entrust her soul to me. I narrowed my eyes and warned that meant her life would be in my hands. She confirmed it without hesitation and insisted that was proof of her sincerity. I reached out and grabbed the floating purple orb in front of me. I made it spin slightly and agreed to help once I reached higher rank, and she softly called me master. I warned her she had to promise me one condition. She tilted her head, agreed immediately, then suddenly started undressing. She excitedly said she wanted to offer me unique experiences even as a spirit. I facepalmed and told her to stop, then renamed her Xiao Vi and ordered her to go to the Jiang family in the northern town and not scare them. She repeated the name Xiao Vi in confusion. I told her to leave tonight and behave herself. She swore complete loyalty and dedication, making me awkwardly stop her again. Then she suddenly pushed me onto the bed. She accidentally landed on Fufu, who woke up screaming and threatened revenge as Vienne panicked and apologized. The next day, I walked calmly down a street under a clear sky. I looked at the map and muttered that Proro's map made no sense. A man was flirting with a girl in front of me, introducing himself awkwardly. He casually listed unnecessary personal details about himself. He grabbed the girl's hand and asked about her situation. I wondered if I should intervene. Fufu suddenly grabbed my clothes and demanded food. I coldly told her to wait until we found the sacred star stone. Fufu got angry, pulling my hair and shouting that she needed to eat first to grow. On the other side, Tina replied softly to Erna, saying she liked singing and watching plays, then asked if he had any hobbies. Erna smiled with a twisted look, thinking he wanted to possess her hands, getting more excited just imagining it. Outwardly, he only pretended to respond casually, while I watched the scene and shook my head, thinking chasing a girl while being bothered by some little spirit must be exhausting. Suddenly, Erna glanced at me with suspicion, wondering what that strange pressure was just now. Holding Tina close, he darkened his expression, feeling that an unusual force had briefly enveloped him. He realized he only noticed it after it had already disappeared. I didn't care, grabbed Fufu by the collar, and walked away without looking back. Erna quickly turned to Tina and said he had to leave, while Tina called after him in confusion. I leaned under a tree while Fufu happily shouted about eating glutinous rice cakes, and I sighed helplessly. Suddenly, a voice came from behind asking to excuse the interruption. Erna appeared in front of us and asked if I had been looking at him earlier. I froze, thinking he must have failed at flirting and now wanted to blame someone else. I calmly said I was just asking for directions, but didn't need them anymore. As I walked past, Erna mocked me, saying my excuse was too fake to believe. Suddenly, Erna felt a sharp attack coming and barely dodged it. He quickly shifted his body away. Seeing the trees cut cleanly where he had stood, Erna became wary, wondering how a random passerby could do that. I replied calmly that it was just a casual swing. Erna suddenly shouted, thinking we were hunters from Li Ying, trying to capture him, and I was stunned by his strange assumptions. At that moment, Tina ran over, panting and asking what was going on. She thought to herself that such a good-looking single man shouldn't be let go so easily. I tried to explain calmly that we were just passing by and heading somewhere. Before I finished, Erna shouted that he liked girls' arms and saw nothing wrong with it. I froze and asked what he meant. Looking down, I saw Erna holding a severed arm. He licked it with a twisted smile, saying he liked it so much he wanted to keep it close all the time. I was completely speechless. Tina was shocked and muttered that he was a pervert. Erna raised his hand and released a terrifying aura, saying anyone who knew his secret could not leave alive. I sighed and said nobody asked, he exposed himself. Erna ignored it and charged at me with his fist. I calmly activated a golden defensive barrier. His punch hit the barrier and shocked him violently. In the next second, Erna exploded and was blown apart in front of me. Fufu happily called it breakfast, while I froze and quickly told bystanders to hide it and not cause trouble. Later by the riverbank, Fufu helped me dig a pit. I turned to Tina and told her to testify that he attacked first if anything happened later. Tina was still in shock, muttering that maybe she was destined to never get married. She said every man she met had bad intentions, and even last week someone tried to take her heart for a transplant. With Tina suddenly leaning close, I stiffened awkwardly. Later, the three of us walked away as I wondered if everything started after I took in Vien's spirit. Fufu muttered that she only brought good things and told me to handle the rest myself. Soon we arrived in front of a grand estate, and I muttered that this was the Nam Mel residence. 3 guards appeared at the gate, observing us carefully. I evaluated them and noted their strong presence, realizing Nam Mel was not ordinary. Suddenly, a woman's calm voice said it wasn't good to stand there and suggested hiding for now. I looked toward the woman who spoke, and she also looked surprised. I cracked my knuckles and smiled, thinking this is my good disciple, never expected to meet them here. Poo-Poo pointed at her and shouted that she was the woman who scammed their group out of money. The 3 others, 2 men and 1 woman, quietly observed us. Lasuo whispered that our ages and even hair color were strangely similar. Then he suddenly roared, "It's him, catch him," and the other 2 rushed in. I turned back in shock, wondering what was going on. I leapt upward quickly, dodging the trio's coordinated attack. Li Yin pointed her sword forward and growled that Nan Mo had finally been caught and must face judgment. I struggled through the dense sword strikes and said I was also looking for Nan Mo. Poo-Poo mocked me from the side, calling me trash who didn't look trustworthy. Lasuo suddenly dropped from above with a staff, shouting that Nan Mo was tied to missing children cases. He laughed coldly, saying the evidence was already clear, and there was no excuse left. He waved at Poo-Poo and said she was safe now and should come over. Poo-Poo unleashed her Ulaha Grand Punishment technique. The explosion stunned Lasuo and sent him crashing from the air. Poo-Poo stood proudly and shouted she was not a child anymore. She struck a pose, showing off her curves and causing everyone to freeze awkwardly. Liang and others fainted, nosebleeds streaming. Melody suddenly spoke, telling me to stop running and let her hit me once. She raised her hand, saying she loved the sound of bones cracking under judgment. I didn't wait and charged in first. I slipped behind Melody and struck her, saying it was for her own good. She collapsed instantly, shocked at the counterattack. When Melody woke up, she saw me talking with Rita, who happily said it was just a misunderstanding, right, Master? I said coldly to pay first, then we can talk, as Lasuo stepped forward. Lasuo calmly admitted they had acted too hastily. He introduced himself as Lasuo, leader of the Hunting Shadow Squad, and said they needed to discuss Nan Mel. He explained Nan Mel was a sacred figure of the Apsat Duchy, but was now suspected in multiple child disappearance cases. He glanced at Poo-Poo and said one victim matched her appearance, which caused the misunderstanding. Poo-Poo spun her finger and warned him to be careful, or she would execute him. Lasuo continued that the duchy had assigned them to investigate as an elite tracking unit. Melody crossed her arms and explained her reason for joining. She said she loved punishing criminals, and even killing them brought no consequences. Liang jumped in loudly, saying she fought for women's rights and hated Nan Mel for abusing young girls. Melody mocked her, asking why she wasn't so passionate in a previous case involving female victims. Liang shouted that women over 15 were no longer under that protection rule. Melody kept provoking her, calling her a pervert, while Liang fired back, calling her a sadist. I looked at the trio and calmly said each of them had their own strengths, clearly an elite team. Then I shrugged and said I wasn't interested, only here for the Holy Crystal, as instructed by Pio-Ro. Lasuo asked if I would help if Nan Mel appeared, saying my skills were already proven. Liang added that even she had been defeated without me trying. Melody shouted that we were all perverts who fainted just from Poo-Poo's body. I shrugged and said I would help if things were truly as they said. Lasuo nodded and decided to proceed with the investigation together. The 5 of us entered the ancient castle. I turned to Rita and asked if our business was still unresolved. Rita hugged my arm sweetly and said she just wanted to stay for 10 days and use my star priest power a bit. She whispered that even Proro wouldn't have any issue with it, right? I frowned and asked if she already knew. Rita smiled and said of course. She had already checked through astrology. Rita Thailand ma le lui tingik, zuda tuachuk sufu, nhưng về sự khiêm tốn và kỹ nghệ thì tuy ta xuất sắc mọi phương diện. Tôi không hề dao động, lạnh lùng nói, phải đảm bảo khi lấy được thanh tinh thạch, phần đền bù cho ta không được thiếu một xu. Read and Hume, caught you dapu. Một lúc sau, nhóm 5 người dừng trước một cửa hàng tối ẩm. Khi họ tiến vào, Melody bỗng lên tiếng rằng phía trước có tiếng động lạ. Đột nhiên Leon hét lên kia phía trước. Trước mắt họ là một cô gái bị giam trên những khối đá ngọc đỏ, đang khóc nức nở. Melody nghi ngờ đây có thể là nạn nhân từ nam Mel Jamzu. Leon chen vào, nói cô gái nhỏ đang gặp nạn thì không cần phải khóc nữa. Cô ta bước tới, tự tin tuyên bố dưới chiếc khiên của mình là thiên đường cho mọi quý cô. Nhưng cơ thể cô gái kia bất ngờ mọc đầy tinh thể đá ra vờ yếu đuối. Ngay sau đó, cô ta lộ nguyên hình, trở nên vô cùng đáng sợ khiến cả nhóm sững sờ. Leon hoang loạn khi sinh vật kia lao tới và treo lên người cô ta. Melody siết chặt nắm đấm, xông lên hét lớn muốn chết sao. Nhưng cú đấm của cô bị lớp tinh thể chặn đứng. Các mảnh tinh thể phản ngược lại, khiến cô kêu lên đau đớn. Bất ngờ, sinh vật kia bị một đòn đánh trúng ngực. Lesua kịp thời ra tay cứu nguy và hét lên, đó là huyết tinh quỷ. Bảo Leon nhanh lên nếu không cả đôi sẽ chết. Nhưng Leon dozu không dám tấn công một cô gái như vậy. Đúng lúc đó sinh vật kia chặn được gate của Lesua và phản công. Một lưỡi đao đỏ bất ngờ quét ngang không khí. Tôi ra tay chém đứt cánh tay của nó trong tích tắc. Xác sinh vật vô thành từng mảnh rơi xuống đất. Tôi đứng dậy hỏi Lesua có làm quá tay không. Ông ta lập tức nói không, quyết định rất chính xác. Lesua quỳ xuống kiểm tra tinh thể và xác nhận đây là tà thuật. Ông Cao May nói có một giả thuyết đáo bảo. Cả nhóm tiến vào một căn phòng đầy sách vở. Lesua nói đây là phòng tài liệu. Ông mở một cuốn sách và nói Nan Mel có thể liên quan đến Morris. Sư giả quân đoàn tà năng cách đây vài chục năm. Tôi ngạc nhiên. Rita tiếp lời, hắn dùng tà thuật biến sinh mạng thành tinh thể để tăng sức mạnh. Cô lạnh giọng nói hàng chục vạn người ở Đại lục Era đã bị giết dưới tay hắn. Rita kể rằng 20 năm trước, Morris từng đối đầu liên minh thập tự quân và biến mất sau khi giết một vị tướng. Lesua gật đầu xác nhận thông tin. Ông nói tài liệu cho thấy tà thuật đã được cải tiến để chọn vật chủ phù hợp hơn nhằm tăng hiệu suất. Tôi suy đoán những vật chủ đó có thể là trẻ em. Lesua xác nhận và ánh mắt trầm xuống. Melody bước tới một chiếc tủ và nhận xét nó được bảo vệ rất kỹ. Lesua nghiêm trọng nói, nếu thật sự liên quan đến Morris thì nên rút lui. Ông nói kẻ dùng tà thuật này không phải đối thủ có thể đối phó. Tôi tiến lên một thùng chiếc tủ, nói cái xem là biết ngay. Khoảnh khắc đó tôi sững lại. Lesua lập tức hét lên, chính là Morris không sai. Bên trong là những lọ thủy tinh chứa đầy bàn tay người. Lesua run giọng nói Morris, chuyên thu thập tay nạn nhân và giết họ tàn nhẫn. Hắn từng biến mất rồi giả dạng thành nam Mel để ẩn mình. Ông quay sang tôi, vội vàng nói phải rút lui ngay lập tức. Tôi hỏi có ai từng gặp Morris hay nam Mel thật sự chưa? Lesua ngập ngừng hỏi lại ý tôi là gì. Tôi gãi đầu, cười nhẹ nói có lẽ tôi biết hắn đang ở đâu. Một lúc sau cả nhóm quay lại khu hô đất ban đầu. Tôi nhìn xuống thi thể và hỏi có phải hắn không. Lesua xác nhận, đây chính là Morris trong tranh truy nã 20 năm trước. Ông hỏi làm sao tôi biết thi thể Morris ở đây. Tôi nói chúng tôi từng chạm trán, hắn tấn công rồi biến mất. Lesua lầm bầm rồi xác nhận lại. Trở về lâu đài, cả nhóm ngồi quanh bàn ăn trong không khí nặng nề. Tôi hỏi Rita rằng thánh tinh thạch thuộc về tôi. Pu nghi ngờ cô ta quá tốt để tin. Một bang thông báo hiện lên, đã nhận vật phẩm quan trọng, thánh tinh thạch. Tôi cầm viên đá phát sáng và nói về là thật. Rita mỉm cười ngọt ngào nói, đây chỉ là chút tâm ý nhỏ của đồ đệ, xin sư phụ nhận lấy. Lesua bước vào, cung kính nói đại nhân, ngài không chỉ cứu chúng ta mà còn giải thoát vô số gia đình ở phương Bắc. Ông khẳng định số thánh tinh thạch này vẫn còn quá ít cho ngài. Tôi không từ chối gật đầu nói đúng vậy, vốn dĩ nó là của ta. Tôi quay sang Rita, nhắc rằng cô vẫn còn nợ ta phần bồi thường. Bất ngờ Rita nhảy lên bệ cửa sổ rồi lao vút ra ngoài như chớp. Từ bên dưới, cô vẫy tay hét lên xin lỗi sư phụ. Ta nhớ còn một con rồng lửa ở phía đông đang chờ cứu, hẹn gặp lại. Tôi lắc đầu lầm bầm, chạy công nhanh thật. Tôi quay lại nói với Lesua rằng chúng ta quay về báo cáo. Khi danh tính Nan El được xác thực, hiệp hội sẽ liên lạc để trao thưởng, rồi hỏi ông còn yêu cầu gì không. Leon ngã ngửa nước mắt giàn giụa, không thể tin nổi. Melody lạnh lùng quay đi và chỉ nói một câu rồi rời khỏi. Pu mặt đỏ bừng nhìn đống đồ ăn, reo lên tất cả là của ta rồi. Tôi cạn lời trông cằm nhìn sang chỗ khác. Bên ngoài lâu đài, vài cô gái xuất hiện và bước vào phòng. Người dẫn đầu đội vương miện giới thiệu, cô là Giang Chen đúng không? Ta là Hoa Yin, viên chức an ninh địa phương. Cô ta nghiêm giọng nói, cô bị nghi ngờ liên quan đến một vụ giết người. Tôi nhíu mày hỏi lại, giết người? Hoa Yin nói cách đây 2 giờ, Tina bị sát hại ở khu rừng phía đông ngoại ô, trái tim bị cắt bỏ. Nhân chứng nói cậu là người cuối cùng gặp cô ta. Tôi nhớ lại lời Tina từng nói về một kẻ muốn lấy tim cô để ghép cho con gái hắn. Thầm nghĩ lần này khó thoát rồi. Tôi lắc đầu nói trong thời gian đó tôi ở cùng đội Hunting Shadow, có thể xác minh. Một tweet tung gắt lên bảo đi xác minh làm gì cho mất thời gian. Hoa Yin giơ tay ngăn lại, lạnh giọng nói Hunting Shadow chỉ là tổ chức dân gian, còn chúng ta là cơ quan an ninh trung ương. Tôi đứng dậy dứt khoát nói không hợp tác, tôi không làm và không có thời gian dây dưa. Trong lòng nghĩ các người không giữ nổi ta đâu. Đột nhiên cơ thể tôi nhẹ bâng và bị nâng lên không trung. Tôi ngạc nhiên hỏi sao lại bay. Chưa kịp phản ứng, Hoa Yin đã túm cổ áo tôi kéo xuống. Cô ta quát lớn rồi quật mạnh, khiến tôi không thể thoát. Tôi thai mặt kinh ngạc, cô ta làm bằng cách nào? Hoa Yin nhìn xuống, lạnh lùng nói, cô bị nghi ngờ giết người và gây rối trật tự. Cô ta bổ sung thêm tội lưu manh và ra lệnh bắt giữ. Một lúc sau tôi bị đưa vào một căn phòng khác. Tôi bị trói trong góc, Hoa Yin mỉm cười nói vẫn không chịu khai sao, vậy cứ ở đây. Tôi lạnh lùng đáp, tôi đã nói hết, không liên quan, cứ xác minh về Hunting Shadow. Hoa Yin không quan tâm, mỉm cười nói nếu cô thích ở đây thì ta sẽ chịu. Đột nhiên cơ thể tôi nặng chịu và gần như sụp xuống. Ánh mắt Hoa Yin lóe sang, giọng mà mi nói hãy khuất phục đi. Tôi lập tức hiểu ra đây là năng lực điều khiển trọng lực. Nhớ lại lúc gặp ban đầu liền thầm nghĩ ra vậy. Pupu bên cạnh theo chắc nói do mà hiểu à. Hoa Yin tăng áp lực, lạnh giọng hỏi vẫn không khuy sao.
Cô ta nói đâu gọi cô sắp gay rồi.
Đúng lúc cửa bật mở, một giọng nói vang lên gọi kiểm sát viên Hoa Yin. Hoa Yin khâng lại đứng thẳng dậy, tỏ rõ khó chịu. Cô ta tiến tới cười trói cho tôi và nói cô có thể đi. Nên lúc đó cô ghé sát thì thầm lần sau ta sẽ dạy dỗ cô kỹ hơn. Tôi đặt tay lên vai cô cười nạt nói tôi rất mong chờ. Hoa Yin đột nhiên cứng người, không thể cử động. Cô ta hoảng hốt nghĩ, hắn đã nhìn thấu năng lực của mình và phản lại. Tôi bước ra cửa, quay lại nhìn cô đang đứng bất động. Cô lầm bầm bị kiểm soát bởi tội phạm đúng là nhục nhã. Tại lâu đài nguy nga, Hoa Yin đi bên một người đàn ông và hỏi vì sao lại thả hắn. Người đàn ông thở dài nói, có người đã chi tiền bảo lãnh cho Jiang Chen. Ông nói một nửa ngân sách an ninh là từ họ tài trợ. Hoa Yin đỏ mặt nói dù vậy cũng không nên tha quá vội. Người đàn ông mở cửa nói lý do khác là chân ngôn phán định đã xác minh xong. Trong phòng, một chàng trai bị trói ngồi gục đầu và kết luận cho thấy nhân chứng trước đó đã nói dối. Hoa Yin hesitated and asked if Jiang Chen had truly been witnessed committing murder. The man nodded and confirmed it was true. The official looked at her and calmly said she was sweating heavily, asking if the room was too hot. She stammered and muttered that it might be. She thought to herself that breaking free from Jiang Chen's mind control had already cost her a lot of energy, and it was humiliating. She stepped closer to the man and muttered that regardless, her humiliation was caused by his false testimony. She held the tool in her hand, her expression turning cruel, and said it was time for a very interesting trial. The man screamed in pain. Meanwhile, I left the castle. At the gate, Qing Yu appeared and called out happily that brother Jiang Chen had finally come out. I looked at her and smiled lightly, thanking her for negotiating with the security officials. Then I asked how she knew I was here, and Qing Yu nervously admitted she had been looking for me. She quickly summarized that merchants returning from the northern town reported a war had broken out. I was shocked and repeated, war? She continued that the Shen family had declared war on the Jiang family and blocked the entire town, and she only found out where I was after asking around. I silently analyzed that the Shen family must have been planning this ambush for a long time. After a moment, I placed my hand on Qing Yu's shoulder and thanked her, saying I needed to return immediately. Pu Pu suddenly appeared and confidently said, not to worry because Xiao Wei was still there. The young queen was not someone weak soldiers could handle. Qing Yu touched the horse nearby and said, this was the fastest horse in the Merchant Guild and would be useful. I stroked the horse and praised her preparation. I mounted the horse and thanked Qing Yu, telling her to inform Proro that the child he adopted had already been laid to rest. She quietly agreed. I immediately rode off. Qing Yu smiled and called after me, telling me to come visit her if I ever needed anything. Pu Pu leaned in and asked what she was so interested in. Suddenly Pu Pu froze and shouted to wait. She said she had not even gotten on the horse yet, calling out as she chased after me. The scene shifted to a distant castle. A white-haired man stood at the gate, muttering that the opportunity had finally come, and that everything had been carefully planned with 3 divisions. He recalled orders that Jiang Chen would arrive at the remote town and must be delayed there until reinforcements arrived. He thought that even the strong woman they had encountered had already been blocked by his troops in the mountains. Elsewhere, Jiang Lu and Aunt Mei were surrounded. Jiang Lu panicked and asked what they should do. Aunt Mei calmly said their opponents were strong, but this was the perfect time to test their skills. The enemies laughed, mocking her and telling her to try seduction magic if she could. Jiang Lu's expression turned cold, her eyes sharpening as she assessed the situation. On the Shen side, the commander declared that the remaining Jiang forces were trapped and would be wiped out before reinforcements arrived. Near the Red Castle forest, a red-haired girl appeared. She looked down at the defeated men and muttered that their strategy was nothing special. She said she would wait until nightfall before wiping them all out in one strike. Her eyes glowed red with a terrifying aura as she smiled coldly. Suddenly, she felt something strange and turned around, realizing something was wrong. She sensed an overwhelming power approaching, far beyond anything here, and wondered if this was the true enemy. She crouched and then leapt into the air. From afar, she locked onto the castle and confirmed her target. Her expression turned fierce as she prepared a fatal strike. She unleashed massive reed-black energy spirals that roared forward and exploded violently. The commander was shocked and asked who it was. He looked up and saw Shen Yan floating in the air, thinking even reinforcements had arrived. Shen Yan laughed loudly, confident that this must be the enemy's backup. He looked down at his troops and proudly declared that the Shen family still maintained its prestige, as even reinforcements had shown considerable power. Untuk ngave lin kung hong, dung chết lặng, không nói lời nào. Sao vu nô hỏi bụi dân tan, viên quan sát xung quanh và nhận ra khí tức vẫn chưa biến mất. Từ trong làn khói một khuôn mặt hiện ra, gào lên chửi rủa từng đâu ta chết rồi sao. Nó tức tôi nói đám thảo linh này chỉ biết đánh lên qua hèn hạ. Viên King bí nhìn tưởng gì ghê gớm hóa ra chỉ là một con mèo lớn. Viên lập tức nổi giận, gầm lên, lao tư là hồ. Cô cười lạnh, mèo cả 9 mạng, không biết vừa rồi ngươi mất mấy mạng rồi. Viên không phục, hiếu khích bảo cứ thử thêm lần nữa. Viên lập tức tung ra một đòn gào thét kinh hoàng. Viên không phun ra luồng sức mạnh lao thẳng tới. Hai luồng lực va chạm, tạo ra vụ nổ kinh thiên động địa. Thẩm Nhan kinh ngạc, vẫn còn cao thủ khác sao? Chẳng lẽ linh quân không chỉ phái một người? Viên và Biên tiếp tục giao chiến dữ dội, không ai chịu nhường ai. Thẩm Nhan vội hét lớn dừng lại, hai vị xin dừng tay. Biên khựng lại, gầm lên hỏi muốn gì? Thẩm Nhan nghiêm giọng nói trong hai vị ai là quân cứu viện của vô hạ linh quân. Việc tiêu diệt Khương gia không thể trì hoãn, mong phối hợp hành động. Viên và Pia nghe xong thì ngơ ngác, vô hạ linh quân, tiêu diệt Khương gia. Thẩm Nhan khựng mặt lung tung hỏi có gì sai sao? Ngay lập tức, cả hai cùng lao vào tấn công ông ta. Đồng Thanh nói, vậy thì sư ngươi trước. Trên đường tôi thúc ngựa phi nhanh hết tốc lực. Tôi hỏi Phu ngồi sao vì sao biết bay mà vẫn đi ngựa. Cô trả lời bay tốn sức, cô đang đói. Tôi quay lại hỏi chuyện nữ vương khóc lóc lúc này là ai, Phu đỏ mặt làng chanh. Cô lầm bầm, không có nói. Cô bám chặt vai tôi, cảm giác quen thuộc nhưng không nhớ rõ hả. Đột nhiên một con ngựa khác lao tới tông thẳng vào chúng tôi. Một con bạch mã phong đen khiến cả hai ngã nhau xuống đất. Phu không sao, còn tôi thì cắm đầu xuống đất, chui thầm cái gì vậy? Con bạch mã nhìn ngựa đen bị hạ và chế bay nó làm ảnh hưởng việc đi hai ốc linh qua. Phu chỉ vào nó và quát hỏi nó làm gì. Nó đáp lại vì hai người quá chậm. Nó tự khoe rằng mình chỉ hơi nhanh hơn bình thường. Tôi bực bội nói ngựa tôi chết rồi, tôi đang gấp về nhà. Nó gật đầu nói biết rồi. Bạch mã nói nó đang bận hai ốc linh qua, lát nữa sẽ tìm cho tôi con ngựa nhanh hơn. Một luồng sức mạnh lướt qua khiến tôi kinh ngạc trước tốc độ của nó. Nó giải thích ốc linh qua 10 năm mới chín một lần nên phải ưu tiên. Nó đột nhiên khựng lại, cảm giác có gì đó. Tôi lập tức lao tới và nhảy lên lưng nó. Nó hoang hốt hét lên, sao lại cười ta? Nó khó chịu nghi không hiểu chuyện gì đang xảy ra. Tôi giữ chặt nó, khiến nó nhận ra tôi không phải người thường. Tôi lạnh lùng nói đã biết chạy thì làm ngựa cho ta. Nếu đủ trở về ta sẽ bỏ qua chuyện này. Kỳ lân hoang hốt lặp lại làm ngựa sao. Nó gào lên rằng mình là thần thú cao quý, từng được nhiều đế vương cầu xin bảo hộ. Tôi nhìn nó với ánh mắt lạnh lẽo. Nó lập tức đổi giọng, nói đồng ý. Tôi mỉm cười nói về đi. Cả nhóm lao nhanh về phía bắc, nơi Khương gia đang gặp biến cố. Trong khu rừng một hố lớn xuất hiện, Biên đang giữ chặt Thẩm Nhan. Thẩm Nhan hoảng sợ cầu xin tha thứ run rây hỏi mình đã đắc tội gì. Ông tiếp tục van xin đừng thỉnh thoảng. Biên cười lạnh, kinh miệt. Ngay sau đó nó zoom lực hất mạnh. Thẩm Nhan bị đánh văng ra khỏi khu rừng, đập xuống lô đài tạo tiếng nổ lớn. Có người hét lên Thẩm Trương lao gặp nạn, mau cứu ông ấy. Ngoài sân lâu đài, Viên đứng trên cao quan sát cuộc hỗn chiến bên dưới. Cô lại tung thêm một đòn khiến tình hình càng hỗn loạn. Ấn thúc lo lắng ra lệnh, nếu tiếp tục thế này thì Thẩm gia không chịu nổi, lập tức nghênh chiến. Tại hô đất Thẩm Nhan nằm đó miệng phun máu đau đớn. Seeing Bia approaching, Shen Yan weakly speaks up, saying they have no hatred or grudge, and asks why he is being attacked, mentioning he only has a minor connection with the Wuxia spirit lord. Yin Shu freezes for a moment, then coldly says this is the old thief Shen Yan, and he deserves it. As Bia presses in on Shen Yan's face, Yin Shu calmly warns them not to cause trouble, saying Jiang Chen's group will not be handed over, and if they want to fight or kill, they can go ahead. Bia suddenly asks what Uncle Ancestor Yin Shu even means. Yin Shu also repeats the question in confusion, wondering the same thing. Bia proudly explains that Jiang Chen is her mother's benefactor, so he counts as her elder. She then looks at Yin Shu and says calling him Uncle Ancestor is correct, and the misunderstanding is finally cleared up as Yin Shu nods in understanding. She casually adds that her mother raised her well, telling her to observe more, so she has been lurking around here these past days. Suddenly, a short-haired boy steps out and exclaims in shock that he was right all along. Flashback shows him fishing with his senior by a river when he spotted a tiger behind a tree, but his senior didn't believe him and mocked him for being distracted, while Bia was hiding nearby watching them. Yuan steps forward gently and introduces herself, saying Jiang Chen sent her to protect the Jiang clan. Bia complains that she should have said so earlier, but But Yuan Yuan coldly replies that he was sneaking around, so how could she trust him? Yin Shu still doesn't understand the situation and asks Yuan Yuan who her master is. Yuan Yuan hesitates for a moment, then drops a shocking claim that she and her master have an engagement pact, and he prefers her calling him that. Yin Shu is stunned and says this is no small matter, adding that while Jiang Chen is young, he won't interfere in private matters, but marriage cannot be taken lightly. He reassures Yuan Yuan, saying he will talk to Jiang Chen and make sure the marriage is handled properly, and bring her into the Jiang clan officially. Yuan Yuan suddenly becomes flustered and lets out a shy reaction. Bia suddenly looks up as a figure appears above and coldly asks who it is. The man standing on the back of a quillin arrogantly answers that he is here to punish them for talking nonsense, asking if they refuse to accept it. Yuan Yuan immediately responds excitedly that she accepts everything, insisting the engagement is real and not nonsense, while a loud voice calls out Yin Fu. The man on the quillin glances down and warns them to stop causing chaos. He then dismounts from the quillin and walks toward Yin Shu, asking if everything is fine in the family. Yin Shu nods and says Shen Yan led an attack, but thanks to these two, nothing major happened. He walks up to the badly injured Shen Yan and taunts him, asking if he ever considered the consequences of attacking the Jiang clan. Despite his condition, Shen Yan refuses to submit and says the strong prey on the weak, winners become kings, and losers are bandits, adding that if he lost here, the same could happen to Jiang Chen's side. Hearing him mention his family, I freeze and say Lu Lu. I leave with Yuan Yuan riding Bia, while Shen Yan is dragged helplessly beneath Bia's claws. I coldly warn that if Lu Lu and Meng Yi are harmed, he will pay 100 times the price. Shen Yan remains fearless and claims he has set up triple ambushes of Shen family elites halfway up the mountain and asks how those two women could possibly survive. He mockingly urges us to hurry over, saying we might still catch them begging for life. Yuan Yuan angrily curses him, but I calmly say we should observe the situation first. Suddenly, in a forest clearing, a terrified voice echoes, saying he doesn't want this humiliation anymore and tells them to just kill him. I immediately shout Lulu. Below, a whiter-bed man cries and kneels, urging Lulu to come out and act quickly. Aunt Meng steps forward and releases a seductive aura. Another man is struck as if hit by lightning, his heart shaken violently. In the next moment, he becomes completely obsessed, drooling and losing control of himself. He hugs Aunt Meng's leg, heart-shaped eyes filled with madness, while she smiles and asks if he is willing to die for her, and he obediently agrees, calling her his queen. Another man panics upon seeing this and begs Lulu to act quickly, saying being killed outright is better than being drained and manipulated to death. Lulu blushes slightly and reluctantly agrees. Lulu immediately finishes her words and throws a straight punch at the man. The man's body shatters instantly, but he still manages to whisper thanks, saying he is finally freed. I quickly land on the ground as Lulu runs into my arms, crying uncontrollably, saying I finally arrived and it was terrifying, while I gently comfort her. Bian watches the scene and breaks into a cold sweat, thinking no one here could possibly intimidate a girl with that level of punch power. Shen Yan, witnessing everything, roars in disbelief, asking why his Shen family elites are so useless. A wounded young man reports that they are not afraid of death, but they simply cannot touch the enemy no matter how hard they try. He trembles and points at Lulu, saying her punches look simple and chaotic, without any real technique. But once hit, the target instantly turns to dust. Lulu screams at them to stay away and not come any closer. Every punch she throws is lethal, instantly crushing anyone she hits. Another panicked report says she is even more terrifying up close, and even her voice and presence can disrupt their minds. He says their entire group has been wiped out without even a proper fight. I walk up to Shen Yan and mock him, saying this battlefield is truly a place where one cannot live or die easily, just as he said. Shen Yan, pinned under Bias' claws, panics and begs for mercies, saying the Shen family has already paid enough and he will never attack again. He adds that his senior elders have influence within the Wuxia Spirit Lord's forces. Before he finishes, Bia swats him away and curses him. Shen Yan is slammed into the ground, blood splattering everywhere, while Yin Shu says he has always been threatening others and can no longer hold back. I sigh and say I still wanted more information, but he acted too fast. The Killen, who has been ignored all this time, suddenly speaks up, asking if it can leave now since its job is done. I freeze and realize I almost forgot about it. I quickly try to recruit it, offering food, shelter, and pay, thinking its mobility would be very useful. But the Killen coldly refuses, saying even if it starves or jumps off a cliff, it will never serve humans again. It declares it will never meet humans again after suffering such humiliation. Then it flies into the sky and disappears. I mutter that it's a pity, since flight unlocks at Tier 4 and progress is still far away. Suddenly I remember something, and think Wuxia Spirit Lord sounds familiar. It seems like the top boss of a high-level dungeon in the Magic Continent, known for killing his own father. I try to recall more details, but only remember that fact vaguely. Yuan Yuan suddenly says Wuxia Spirit Lord might be planning to rebel and attack King Lockton, and I ask if that was officially confirmed. Aunt Meng replies that King Lockton is still alive and well. I freeze and ask what is going on, while she casually says she does not know. She suddenly jumps onto my head and teasingly tells me to use my wooden head to think about it. I fall into thought and say there are two possibilities. Either the game world has changed or something else is happening. The scene shifts as the Killin lands and returns to a northern settlement. Its eyes sparkle with pink heart shapes as it complains that only dozens of spirit fruits could compensate for its exhaustion. It walks calmly through the forest, but suddenly its expression changes. It sees many animals collapsed on the ground and spirit fruits scattered around, realizing something is wrong and suspecting poisoning. It inspects the fruits and thinks spirit fruits should not be toxic, wondering who tampered with them and why anyone would poison something so valuable to Killin beasts. It realizes that if it had been here earlier, it would have been the one to fall victim. Immediately, the Killin rushes off with a serious expression. The white horse grits its teeth and runs in another direction, believing the target is the Killin race, and that it must escape immediately. The scene shifts to a grand palace where Wuxia Spirit Lords sits on a throne, with several kneeling figures below. A long-haired man shouts at Wuxia Spirit Lord, asking why no reinforcements were sent despite previous promises, while another reports that the last of the Zhu family fought to the death. Wuxia Spirit Lord yawns and cuts him off, saying the old man is mistaken. He says he only knew about it, never agreed to help, and calls these trivial matters a waste of his time. Cold sweat pours down the subordinate's face even though the air is not hot. The man kneels and begs, saying the Zhu family has been wiped out and he was just too emotional, asking for mercy and forgiveness. He keeps kowtowing repeatedly, pleading not to be punished. Wuxia Spirit Lord raises his hand and speaks calmly, saying he once passed by a northern small settlement where soldiers were starving, and someone gave them food, and he still remembers that. The subordinate quickly says he will now help properly, placing a hand on his chest and swearing loyalty again. But Wuxia Spirit Lord suddenly smiles strangely and forms an energy sphere in his hand. The subordinate freezes as his body is lifted by an unseen force. He is trapped inside a glowing golden sphere, floating in mid-air, panicking and asking what the Lord is doing. Wuxia Spirit Lord clenches his fist coldly and says there is no meaning in living alone. He will send him to reunite with the dead. The subordinate screams for mercy. Before he can finish, the energy sphere explodes on command. After finishing him off, Wuxia Spirit Lord orders the area cleaned and warns that anyone like him will end the same way, and the subordinates obey immediately. He then turns to Huok Jae and reminds him not to think this has nothing to do with him, criticizing him for failing the mission. He angrily asks how capturing a mermaid and a Killin could be so difficult. Huok Jae breaks into a cold sweat and apologizes, saying he found an important lead. He presents a glowing orb and says the target caused trouble at Xuanyun Lake and may have helped Shenna escape. He projects an image showing me and Shenna talking together. Huok Jae adds that the Killin also sensed the same energy signature at the scene, suggesting the same person is involved. He asks if this person might be sent by someone else to cause chaos, while Wuxia Spirit Lord suspects the old man, but decides further thinking is pointless since the army is about to invade and he needs key samples. He orders Huok Jae to proceed quickly, and Huok Jae confirms everything is already in progress. Wuxia Spirit Lord coldly states that this ant must be killed. Huok Jae's eyes glow as his demonic aura rises, agreeing that everything related to Jiang Chen must pay the price. Meanwhile, at the white luminous palace, the weather is calm as I study a map, noticing this world is very different from the game. I mutter that the current timeline seems to be before players enter the mystic realm, if I'm not mistaken. Fufu suddenly appears and teases me, saying even I can be impressive sometimes. She raises her leg playfully and says she'll add an extra reward. Bia speaks up, saying she will take her leave if there is nothing else. She grins with sharp teeth, saying she still has matters waiting on her mother's side. I hold a glowing wooden reward item and feel speechless, wondering what kind of reward this even is. I casually toss it away, treating it like a simple grinding stick and letting Bia have it. Bia happily jumps up and bites it with excitement. Suddenly she senses something strange, realizing it is a 6th-year divine item containing a cultivation technique. She hesitates and asks if it is really for her, and I coldly reply that if not her, who else would use it here? I think about leaving the remaining parts of the 2 techniques for Lu Lu and Meng Yi. I turn to Yuan Yuan and ask her to come closer. She misunderstands and suddenly kneels, nervously looking down, asking if this position is inappropriate. I freeze, regain composure, push her away and tell her to stand properly while she cries out in pain. I ignore her reaction and begin channeling spiritual energy, saying this technique belongs to the spirit race and may be suitable for her. Yuan Yuan immediately creates a clone of herself, excited to see it. The clone happily says she can now serve her master twice over. I remain calm and say everything is done. Now it is time to proceed with promotion qualification. I ask directly if she is targeting me and why advancement requires permission. Fufu teases that greater power comes with greater responsibility. I walk through the bustling streets of Lumquang City, thinking to myself. I conclude that advancement requires passing a trial dungeon called the Yuanlun Abyss, and entry requires authorization. Suddenly I freeze. Wait, Lumquang City, I remember now. At the same time, Huayan nearby smiles and tells someone that this mission from the Secret Council was personally assigned by Wuxia Spirit Lord. She blushes slightly, sweat forming, thinking she has finally been acknowledged and must work even harder. Fufu tugs my sleeve and points at a stall, saying this one is really delicious. From a distance, Huayan notices me and mutters in surprise, wondering why I am here. I rub my head in confusion, thinking Lumquang City was supposed to be the place Wuxia Spirit Lord massacred before dealing with that man's father. In the crowded streets, I fall into thought, realizing the timing of the massacre is unclear, and I may need to warn people later. I speak up, wondering what would happen if I changed in-game events. Fufu lazily replies that she doesn't know, telling me to deal with the consequences myself. I click my tongue in frustration, unable to get useful information, and decide to head toward the LAR Guild first. From afar, Huayan secretly keeps watching. 2 guards block my path and Fufu's, ordering us to stop, saying the guild is not accepting visitors without an invitation. I step forward coldly and say I am not a guest. I am here for the Yuanlun Abyss trial permit. The guards hesitate, then raise their weapons, and warn us not to take another step. Without anyone noticing, I already pass through them calmly, saying I won't make things difficult for people just trying to earn a living. I continue walking inside, saying I will enter myself. The guards get angry and activate a technique, shouting for me to stop. One of them swings his spear, releasing a golden dragon infused with dragon breath energy, warning me to dodge or die. I remain calm in the face of the divine dragon attack and slowly turn around. I simply raise my hand, and the dragon reverses and backlashes onto its owner, sending the guard flying. At that moment, a man steps down the stairs and respectfully introduces himself as the chief steward of the Duke's mansion, secretly judging my strength to be at least Tier 4 or even Tier 5. I coldly state my name is Jiang Chen, and I am not here for status, only to obtain the trial permit. The steward apologizes and says the timing is unfortunate, as the Duke cannot meet anyone today. I frown and demand to know what problem is so serious that I cannot even be shown, and the steward reluctantly agrees. Inside the mansion, a large crowd gathers, all looking toward Duke Lar. The Duke announces that everyone here is invited for a visit, and regardless of whether they can cure his daughter, they will receive great rewards. He adds that whoever cures her may make any request, and he is willing to offer everything, even his life. Soon, the Duke leads everyone inside, saying his daughter is in the room. The crowd whispers excitedly, with one mage even suggesting they could gain both wealth and the Duke's daughter if successful. Inside, I see a girl bound tightly with chains, eyes glowing red, her mouth grotesquely stitched, surrounded by dark cursed energy. The crowd gasps in fear, asking if the Duke is serious, while he admits he has no other choice despite knowing the condition is like a deadly plague. Duke Lar desperately begs everyone to try saving his daughter, but the horrifying sight causes most people to panic and flee, shouting that they do not want to become monsters. Only Sonia steps forward confidently and says she is willing to try. She approaches and begins casting holy magic, saying she will use divine light to purify the suffering. The Duke shows hope, but Sonia struggles as the holy light refuses to respond, while the girl screams in pain. After a while, Sonia gasps for breath, admitting that the holy light is not responding at all. At that moment, I walk in and recognize the situation, realizing this is the same plague that caused the Wuxia Spirit Lord to destroy a city. I recall that it spreads rapidly, turning the entire city into zombies, and that all attempts to cure it were useless. I mutter that although tragic, he ultimately went insane under pressure and killed his own father. Sonia helplessly turns to the Duke and apologizes, saying the only thing she can do is let the girl fall into eternal sleep to end her suffering. R roars in rage, saying no one is allowed to end his daughter. She is still human, still his child. Sonia sadly replies that if nothing is done, the Duke's family and even the entire city will be in danger. At the critical moment, I speak up, saying there is no need for such force. and that an obsession technique is enough. Duke LR is shocked and shouts at me, asking who I am, while Sonia pauses in confusion at the word obsession. I step closer to Miss Sis and observe her condition, realizing I cannot blame them, since players in this world developed far beyond the natives after decades of war with the Abyss Legion. I analyze further, noting that players have learned immortal techniques, while locals are still experimenting with crude fusion methods. So of course, there is a gap. I raise my hand as a dark aura spreads, and I calmly say that a glance is enough. I strike down, shattering the chains, and Miss Zit is lifted into the air. Her face turns pale as she coughs up toxic blood. Moments later, she slowly regains consciousness and opens her eyes, confused, asking what happened and calling for her father. Duke LR is overjoyed, shouting that his daughter has finally returned. After the strike, I remain calm, thinking the era also has some great mages, and Sonia of Holy Light is one of the creators of anti-abyss techniques. Sonia cautiously approaches and calls out to me. She hesitantly asks what skill I used and says she wants to learn it. I coldly reply that she cannot learn it because it is an obsession technique, and she would need to abandon the holy light she has cultivated since childhood. Sonia hesitates, then firmly says she is willing if it means saving lives, while I lightly smile and think she does not truly understand what she is asking for. Sonia suddenly insists again that she is willing to learn the obsession technique for the sake of saving more people. I silently think that this holy light saint, who will be famous across the continent in the future, is now asking me to teach her dark techniques. Outside the mansion, Duke LR respectfully hands me a travel permit and a dungeon pass, along with a Duke's token for easy passage in Lumquang City. He adds that I may also request anything else I want, but I calmly say this is enough. I add that I have no other request for now, and will return later if I think of something. The Duke is moved to tears and bows deeply, saying the mansion will forever owe me a great favor. On the way back, I unexpectedly meet Suanya, a young girl with determined eyes, who rushes over asking why I refuse to teach her the obsession technique. She insists she has no talent but is willing to work harder than anyone to learn it. I observe her silently and think she is unusually persistent. I cough lightly and say she does not need to follow the path of obsession and should continue studying Holy Light instead, which may help solve the plague. Sonia responds that Holy Light does not react to her and wonders if she should give up if she cannot even save a patient. I pause and suggest it might be an issue of belief and conviction. Sonia is suddenly enlightened, grabs my hand emotionally, and thanks me, saying I understand Holy Light better than she does, and she feels she has sinned for doubting it. She kneels and insists that Holy Light may hold the cure, and she was only shaken by her own weakness. I scratch my head tiredly and tell her to return and continue her path. Sonia smiles brightly and promises she will try harder before leaving, while I sigh and wonder if I am truly doing the right thing by pushing her toward this path. I turn to Fufu and complain that with a system bug this big, who knows what this damn system will do to me next, while she casually asks for snacks. A rural man suddenly shows up holding a skewer of glutinous rice dumplings, threatening an old lady. He yells that last month's payment covers 3 months, and now paying means next year. If she refuses, she should get lost. The old lady trembles and stammers that they only run a small business and can't possibly afford that much money. Jiang Chen can't stand the injustice. He steps forward with a cold gaze and stops him, saying the uncle is being completely unreasonable. The man turns around with a scornful look, mocking him as a little brat from nowhere. He roars for him to get lost. The old man lunges to attack, but before he can land a hit, Jiang Chen instantly grabs his arm. The man screams in pain and then snarls in rage, threatening him and asking if he knows who his father is in City A. Jiang Chen frowns without hesitation and holds up a permit right in front of him. The moment the man sees it, his expression changes drastically in fear. He stammers that Jiang Chen is from the ducal mansion. Too scared to stay, he quickly turns and runs, muttering that he shouldn't have caused trouble. Fufu angrily watches him flee and curses him as a bastard. Jiang Chen walks to the stall and politely asks for a skewer of dumplings. The old lady lights up with joy and asks what sauce he wants. Fufu excitedly jumps in and says she wants everything. Suddenly, Jiang Chen senses a mysterious gaze watching him. In the shadows, Hua En realizes she has been exposed and frowns, wondering how he noticed her. She was clearly perfectly disguised, until a kid runs up and points at her shouting monster. Annoyed, she throws off her mask and mutters that the Spirit Army's orders were correct. Linguang City is facing a disease outbreak, and if it's not controlled, it will become a disaster. She walks straight up to Jiang Chen and gets to the point, saying that beyond the Duke's daughter matter, the contaminated water in the outskirts is far more important. If he can handle it, he should come with her. Jiang Chen coldly refuses without hesitation. Hua En pauses in surprise and asks what he means. He shrugs indifferently and says he's not interested in the empire's political affairs and has nothing to do with them. Nearby, Fufu angrily holds her head and glares in frustration, shouting that the dumplings belong to her. Jiang Chen casually eats the skewer with a lazy, teasing expression. While chewing, he thinks that dealing with people with high school syndrome already feels exhausting, and he doesn't want any part of it. Suddenly, a child runs up to him, smiles innocently, and says in a clear voice that they just said thank you and asks him to come over, Xiao Di. The child then runs back to another stall, where a woman gently repeats the thanks and calls the child back. Xiao Di draws Jiang Chen's attention toward them. Faint fragments of memory in Jiang Chen's mind gradually become clearer, like a picture being redrawn. He narrows his eyes and turns to Hua En, asking in a low voice where the contaminated water is coming from. She replies with a sharp gaze that he will know once he follows her. At the forested outskirts near a small mining site, Jiang Chen and Hua En stand before a zone of deathly miasma, rising like thick black fog. Jiang Chen focuses and moves his hands through the air, trying to purify the toxic energy. Hua En watches nervously and asks if it can be solved. He snaps back sharply, telling her to stay quiet and let him work. He steps closer and closer into the miasma, sensing its changes clearly. Hua En, standing behind him, is shocked and mutters that he might actually be able to cleanse it. After the miasma is fully purified, Jiang Chen exhales tiredly and mutters that just one drainage pipe already drained most of his energy. He senses dozens more polluted outlets like this around Linguang City, realizing one alone is this exhausting, and he will need another method. Hua En watches silently. Seeing him deep in thought, she frowns and asks if he is hiding some secret. Without waiting for an answer, she turns to leave but suddenly stops and asks in frustration what he is doing. Jiang Chen shrugs and casually explains that sewage pipes need drainage, and so does he. Otherwise, does she want him to hold it in until he dies? If the environment is being destroyed, then of course the tools behind it must be confiscated. Suddenly, a formation lights up from a large tree ahead. A masked figure holding a long sword appears and roars that he has finally found him. Jiang Chen is startled, realizing his spiritual energy is nearly depleted, and he can't use his defensive shield. Damn it, at this distance, what can he even do? The masked man swings his sword in a flash, fast as the wind. But in that instant, Jiang Chen disappears. The enemy is stunned, only to see him suddenly crash face-first onto the ground. Across from him, Hua En is gathering spiritual energy, a glowing golden orb floating above her palm. Pinned under overwhelming mental pressure, Jiang Chen shouts, "Hey, can you let me go already?" Hua En ignores him completely, brushing her hair lightly as she steps forward with a cold smile. She says in a teasing tone that attacking a law enforcement officer means interrogation is necessary. Jiang Chen is furious inside, thinking she's definitely doing this on purpose. You can't judge people by appearances. Hua En stands before the masked man, looking down coldly. She declares she is law enforcement and orders him to surrender and come with her for interrogation. The mental pressure crushes down, leaving the masked man barely able to move. Suddenly, the masked man jumps up and slashes straight at Hua En. He roars that his target isn't her and tells her to move. Hua En remains calm and cold, mocking that he can still move at this level. Her mental force erupts like a net, but the masked man twists away and dodges. He rushes toward her, taunting that her ability only works within a fixed range. Hua En grits her teeth and shouts, "Maximum output." The masked man narrowly avoids it again and smirks, claiming that as long as he escapes her range, she's useless. He declares confidently that as an assassin, he has absolute trust in his mobility. Before he can finish, Hua En gathers power and launches a lightning-fast counterattack straight at him. The masked man trembles and raises his hands in surrender. Hua En stares at him coldly and mentions Chief Ma Wei has never punished prisoners with brute force. Do you know why? Because if she used her true specialty, it would end too easily. Then there would be no meaning in punishment at all. She pauses and mutters irritably, sensing something is off. Damn it, Hez here. The masked man realizes Hua En is distracted and immediately changes target to Jiang Chen, muttering that hell take that head instead. Jiang Chen calmly sits there eating dumplings with a satisfied look. Fufu frowns and says that's hers. He shrugs, saying he needs it to recover energy. Fufu suddenly turns back in shock. The masked man charges in, shouting that a Choo-Choo Empire brat should be dying, not eating so comfortably. Jiang Chen stays calm and flicks a dumpling in his hand, saying the last one is for him, maximum mental force. The masked man freezes, confused by what he's seeing. Jiang Chen smirks and says even if it hits, it won't hurt, because that's when hell take his life. The dumpling flies past Hua En. It suddenly strikes the masked man's back. Jiang Chen clicks his tongue in satisfaction, saying he told him not to dodge. Now take a look. Hopefully you're carrying something valuable. Jiang Chen stands up, still surprised by Hua En's earlier technique. Mental force really can be this strong? He bends down and searches the masked man, finding a token. He mutters in confusion what this is. Fu Fu asks if it's useful, saying this trash has nothing good, not even a fraction of what she gave him. Hua En becomes interested and quickly grabs the token, asking to see it. She examines it closely, then her expression turns serious. As expected, this is the guard token of Wu Ha Ling Jun. Why is it on him? Was it stolen from a fallen guard? Jiang Chen frowns and says firmly that this man was clearly sent by Wu Ha to assassinate him. Hua En looks puzzled and asks why the Spirit Lord would target him. Jiang Chen shrugs casually, saying he doesn't know. Maybe some guy came to cause trouble and got killed, and before dying, he claimed he was from Wu Ha. Hearing this, Hua En suddenly understands and points upward confidently, saying she will investigate this clearly. Jiang Chen's elimination of the plague is a merit to the empire. Once Wu Ha Ling Jun learns the truth, he will surely drop any grievances and reward him instead. Hua En continues confidently, saying that no one cares more about the people than the great and benevolent Wu Ha Ling Jun. That's exactly why she became a law enforcement officer to follow his footsteps. Jiang Chen listens and thinks sarcastically that, right, her grandfather is pure and flawless. Assassinations have nothing to do with him, and massacres have nothing to do with him either. He turns serious and says that he cannot purify all the polluted water in Linguang City, and she needs to inform others to prepare immediately. Otherwise, that guy will massacre the entire city. Hua En's face turns ice cold as she asks who. Jiang Chen replies calmly but cryptically that she will know when the time comes, then turns and walks away. Hua En quickly runs after him, shouting for him to stop and explain clearly. In the Imperial Palace, Jiang Chen and Fu Fu stroll casually. Jiang Chen mutters that a father who can't discipline his son is at fault, referring to that Chuni Ling Jun. In the end, the old king is too weak, so he has to speak with him directly. Fu Fu quickly warns him in panic that the palace is full of experts and even sealed formations. If he goes in, he won't be able to teleport out. Jiang Chen smirks and replies confidently that he has Fu Fu, so his life is basically in her hands. Fu Fu's eyes light up as if she's been enlightened, excitedly saying He's relying on her after all, and shall protect him with her divine abilities. Jiang Chen smiles slyly and takes out a large book, holding it in front of her, telling her to take this first. Then he adds teasingly that if Fu Fu trips and falls, she'll probably cry for a long time, right? Fu Fu stares at the book in confusion and blurts out what it is. Before she can react, Jiang Chen grabs her hand and shouts, 1, 2, 3, go, and they dash forward like a gust of wind. A while later, on a rocky mountain path, Jiang Chen is calmly training his fists, each strike echoing sharply. Meanwhile, Fu Fu speeds through the air like a small tornado heading toward the Imperial Palace. At the palace gate, the guards are startled as Fu Fu rushes past at extreme speed. One of them yells in shock, wondering what just flew by, and the other immediately orders all units to stay alert for possible threats. From above, Jiang Chen watches and thinks to himself that now is the moment. The guards rush toward Fu Fu, and one of them cautiously asks what is wrong. Fu Fu immediately acts panicked and shouts that a human trafficker tried to kidnap her, but she narrowly escaped. The guard quickly asks where the kidnapper is. Fu Fu points in a direction, trembling as she says he went that way. The guards immediately order a search, saying they cannot allow any incident near the royal capital. The other soldier responds affirmatively. Fu Fu lowers her head innocently and thanks them softly, saying she will go home now. But the guard suddenly becomes suspicious and loudly stops her, insisting on escorting her home and asking where she lives. Meanwhile, in a corner of the palace, Jiang Chen sits casually eating roasted chicken in front of King Gong. He mutters in satisfaction, saying, the chicken is crispy outside, tender inside, and perfectly seasoned. He even praises the royal chef's skills, then asks King Gong about it with a relaxed tone. King Gong grits his teeth in anger, thinking this brat is mocking him and silencing him. Jiang Chen immediately preempts him and says he means no disrespect, then uses telepathy to communicate. King Gong stares and asks through mental transmission who he is. Jiang Chen continues chewing and replies that his identity doesn't matter. What matters is that Linguang City is facing a plague outbreak. He stands up confidently, steps past King Gong, and says that even Wu Ha Ling Jun's own son is involved in this. Since he failed to stop the massacre and city destruction, now is the only chance to act. That is why he came. King Gong frowns in confusion through telepathy, asking what plague he is talking about. He claims the Northern Empire is protected by divine will, so such a thing is impossible. He further insists that a massacre of a city is even more impossible. Although his son may be slightly reckless, no one cares for the people more than him. Before he can finish, Jiang Chen interrupts coldly, saying that on the day his son was born, the entire Northern Valley whispered his name. King Gong is stunned, his lips trembling as he transmits mentally, asking how the young man could possibly know what he was about to say. He says these words have been buried in his heart for decades, and he was waiting for the perfect moment to pass them on to his son. Jiang Chen looks at him with a faint mocking gaze, thinking that this will likely be the last thing he ever gets to say before getting arrested. He calmly says that lying brings no benefit anyway. Isn't that what he meant? Then he tells him to verify it himself. King Gong grows furious but helpless, continuing the mental transmission. He says he doesn't know the young man's intentions, but once Mayan arrives, everything will become clear. Jiang Chen immediately shouts back in anger, asking if he just secretly called for backup. Outside, 2 guards are escorting Fu Fu. One of them suspiciously notes she has already passed 3 streets and asks if she forgot where she lives. Fu Fu blinks innocently and says she's hungry and needs food before she can think. She asks them to buy her something to eat. One guard coldly orders that she be taken back immediately. The other guard worries she might be from a noble family, but the captain says she looks more suspicious than anyone trying to approach the royal capital. The captain turns to Fu Fu, reaches out, and orders her to come with them. Suddenly, Fu Fu strikes the guard hard and shouts a chaotic great punishment attack. She mischievously mutters that she's done playing and runs off, saying goodbye. The guard collapses to the ground, shouting that something is definitely wrong. He urgently contacts Mayan, reporting an emergency and asking him to come immediately to meet the king. Inside a magic orb, Mayan observes everything and says calmly that the entire royal capital is already under his control. He holds the orb, which shows King Gong and Jiang Chen in conversation. On Jiang Chen's side, he continues speaking sharply, accusing the king of secretly sending people to attack him while pretending to talk. King Gong smirks and transmits that Mayan was never summoned by him in the first place. As an 8-array mage, Mayan's spiritual power can cover the entire royal capital. Detecting foreign presences and arriving is only a matter of time. He adds that Jiang Chen was smart not to attack him, because if he did, the protective 8-array spell would instantly eliminate him. Jiang Chen explodes in anger, calling him an arrogant system whale bastard. King Gong continues calmly, advising him that no matter how he entered, once he is inside Mayan's forbidden formation, all magic becomes ineffective. Jiang Chen's eyes flash as he asks if that means he can't escape anymore. King Gong smirks and says he won't make things difficult, as long as Jiang Chen explains everything about himself and Linguang City clearly. Jiang Chen loses patience and shouts if he's joking. Fu Fu, now is the time. Before Fu Fu appears, the surrounding space suddenly erupts with countless purple miasma tentacles, twisting like ghostly shadows. King Gong is startled and turns toward the source. One side shows a spatial tier, the other reveals a flickering teleport gate. Mayan steps out from the gate, striking his staff on the ground, and asks the king how many people in the entire continent are as strong as him. King Gong repeats the question in shock, as if echoing Mayan's words. Mayan replies coldly that there are probably more than 10 people comparable to him, but even if they surpass him in strength, the forbidden formation he set up in the royal capital can still hold them back for a while. At the very least, no one could leave so easily. He then wonders who on earth could reach this level. The scene shifts to a rocky cliff where King Gong is fishing, looking around in confusion. He mutters that this was supposed to be a tragedy, but something has already overturned it, when a voice echoes saying that his life is the most interesting one he has ever seen. King Gong is stunned and asks what that voice is. The voice continues, saying that if something strange is asked of him, he should not refuse immediately. It tells him to try believing it is the will of God. King Gong trembles and mutters, if even a turtle is talking now, wondering if he is getting old or losing his mind. King Gong trembles and mutters in disbelief, asking if it really is a messenger of the gods. On the other side, Jiang Chen is suspended in midair, eyes deep in thought. He thinks to himself that his plan was completely correct. Without hesitation, he steps directly into the trial site, Nguyen Luan Chi Vien, a place hiding unexplored secrets. Jiang Chen scans the entrance coldly, thinking that anyone who activates permission at the trial gate will be forcibly teleported in. These trials originate from the primordial power of the ELA continent and are not something ordinary people can resist. That's why he made Fu Fu activate it at the most critical moment, forcing a teleport and smoothly escaping the royal capital. At that moment, Fu Fu appears, circling an ancient chest and trying every way to open it, chanting excitedly. Jiang Chen walks inside, analyzing everything. On the surface, it seems convenient, but this is a decisive U-level mechanism. The trial automatically relocates the user based on ELA rules. He believes Fu Fu exists outside those rules. The trial only locks onto his own energy signature and pulls him in, and he smirks in satisfaction. Fu Fu, drenched in sweat, complains that she's exhausted and demands compensation, saying he only relies on her in critical moments. Without hesitation, Jiang Chen stuffs a skewer of food into her mouth. Fufu chews happily, eyes sparkling as she praises how delicious it is, saying even trashy Jiang Chen sometimes has good things. Jiang Chen ignores her and stretches slightly, stepping deeper inside, while thinking that even an 8-array mage isn't unbeatable here. Then he declares it's time to clear the trial. The two move deeper into the trial area when suddenly, an NPC appears, speaking calmly but sharply, asking if he is the last participant to arrive. The NPC says she will assess his strength first, as it determines whether the team can cooperate, and warns him not to resist. After waiting a while, Jiang Chen loses patience and mutters irritably that she's extremely slow. The trial only lasts 5 hours. Does she know how much treasure hunting time she's wasting? The NPC turns back and replies seriously that waiting a little longer won't hurt, but leaving him alone here could be dangerous. She mutters to herself, wondering if she misjudged him. After observing further, she frowns and says something is wrong, there are no energy fluctuations at all. Jiang Chen, annoyed, tells her to stop testing him, insisting he is indeed first rank. Suddenly, footsteps echo in the cave. 2 figures appear, one is Lanisa, the other a masked man. Sensing Jiang Chen's weak strength, the masked man whispers to Lanisa, calling her big sister Lanisa, saying the boy is only first rank and asking what they should do. Lanisa thinks silently and agrees it is dangerous. The masked man nods and suggests throwing him out while they still can. Lanisa immediately stops him sternly, saying the council will never abandon anyone in danger. The masked man freezes and asks what council even is. The red-haired NPC grows impatient, clenches her fist, and tells him to just follow Big Sis. The atmosphere turns tense as the two clearly dislike each other. As leader, Lanisa interrupts and explains that if Jiang Chen was qualified to enter the trial, he might actually have talent. She tells Jiang Chen to stay closer to them, so they can react in time. The masked man reluctantly adds that if she insists, he can come along, but all loot must be split equally, and he is not allowed to take anything selfishly. Jiang Chen narrows his eyes, a sharp killing intent flashing. He coldly replies that despite all their talk, he never intended to travel with them anyway. He immediately leaps forward. The masked man shouts in shock, asking what he means. Jiang Chen casually replies that he's used to working alone. The red-haired NPC is stunned by his arrogance, muttering that going solo here is insane. She warns that even teamwork requires at least rank 6 strength, and going alone is basically suicide. Jiang Chen waved his hand, rejecting their kind offer with a grin. No need to worry. I was born with insane luck. I always end up finding soft targets wherever I go. The masked man, finally feeling some relief, waved dismissively with a cold tone. Fine, Lady Lanisa, just ignore this guy. Lanisa looked unsatisfied, but had no choice but to back down. If you want to go alone, I won't stop you anymore. Jiang Chen said nothing more and kept walking, casually waving behind him with a teasing tone. All right then, good luck everyone. There's a demonic beast cave over there. Be careful. Watching Jiang Chen disappear, the masked man turned to Lanisa and asked, Lady Chief, is that guy heading straight for the beast lair? If he wants to die that badly, just let him go. Lanisa shrugged lightly, her expression indifferent. Let's move. Who knows, maybe he really is as lucky as he says. Deep inside the cave, a gigantic monster sat in silence, guarding the place like a throne. Its sharp fangs gleamed with a chilling light. It growled lowly, full of hunger. Humans, fresh human scent again. Go, bring his soul essence back to me. The monster slowly lifted its gaze toward the sky. On the other side, Jiang Chen and Pu Pu were heading deeper into the Origin Wheel Garden. He muttered with sharp eyes. A beginner dungeon in the game. I've cleared it hundreds of times. The final boss is General Xuan Yue. The shortcut is to the left from here. He glanced around, a faint unease rising. It should be like this, but why does something feel off? Didn't I just pass this road? Am I lost? Suddenly, a small snake slithered in from behind, whispering with cunning eyes. This human is completely unguarded. The credit is mine. Jiang Chen, completely unaware, suddenly stepped down hard on it and muttered, Huh? What did I just step on? At that moment, a massive beast appeared behind him. Sensing the pressure, Jiang Chen turned his head and clicked his tongue. That stupid snake really told me to wait and coordinate. Now it's just cannon fodder. No hesitation, now it's just dead weight. He turned to the new monster and said impatiently, Where did this dog come from? Perfect timing, tell me something. Where is General Xuan Yue? The monster's eyes turned crimson as it roared. Pitiful human, you walked in here and still want to turn back? Jiang Chen smirked and replied, I walked in, what place is this? Is this Xuan Yu's nest? The monster erupted in fury, its aura surging wildly. You idiot, no one told you? In this trial zone, there are places you must never approach. Inside them are extreme yin and evil monsters. Any life that enters will be erased, and I am the Thunderwolf King. Its energy condensed into a violent swirling blast and shot straight toward Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes and casually dodged, instantly matching the Thunder Wolf's movement. In a flash, he struck back and mocked. Move away. That smell is disgusting. If you all have a master, I'm really going to curse them out. Don't they even trim your nails? The Thunder Wolf was instantly knocked down, lying motionless. The small snake from earlier, watching the one-sided fight, couldn't help but mock. Thunder Wolf, you're pretty weak too. The demon wolf's eyes burned red as it roared in rage. My mistake, this human is strong. His soul essence is worth hundreds of people. Jiang Chen watched as the beast still struggled, frowning. Still not dead? So that energy on you, it's controlling you. That's why, even with a shattered body, you can still move. The demon wolf, still absorbing energy to recover, sneered. So you noticed it? So what? You still can't escape death. Jiang Chen didn't bother wasting time and smirked coldly. Time is money. He provoked them all. Come at me together. Hearing that, all the monsters rushed forward in a brutal surge. Jiang Chen snapped his fingers lightly, already calculating in his mind. Perfect. I'll finish you all in one go. With a single powerful strike, the monsters were torn apart, shredded into pieces, and dissolved into nothingness. Elsewhere, the small snake barely escaped death and fled in panic. It reported urgently. Report. There's a monster. Lasita, the massive creature, narrowed her eyes and asked. Another intruder stronger than us? Meng Yin evil demon or a devouring star beast? The snake trembled and replied. It's a human. Lasita's eyes widened as she repeated. A human? Somewhere else. Jiang Chen continued deeper into the cave. In front of him, countless stars shimmered and glowed like a galaxy. Jiang Chen smiled and muttered that maybe this thing is actually useful after all. In his mind, he briefly wondered if he was here to settle accounts for Tian'an. Lysita roared in fury. A human? Since when did humans reach this level? Could it be the legendary hero Ella? But wasn't that guy dead hundreds of years ago? The snake lowered its head respectfully and reported. Master, he is coming soon. Lysita's rage exploded as she roared again. A bunch of useless trash. It's even stronger than what I can sense. Only first year, but its body is insanely tough. If I can devour him, it'll become unstoppable. At that moment, Jiang Chen appeared, his voice echoing through the space and drawing Lysita's attention. So this is the place. You're the dungeon boss, right? Did you come here to die yourself? Or should I help you? He gathered spiritual energy, forming floating spears, sharp enough to tear space apart. Lysita, enraged by the provocation, roared. Human, you are honored to be remembered by me. Before you die, say your name. Jiang Chen lost patience and shouted coldly. Too much talking. He launched the energy spears straight at Lysita, eyes icy. That weak? The reward doesn't look very high then. From the smoke, Lysita suddenly charged out, claws tearing through space as she locked onto Jiang Chen. She roared. Foolish human, I've seen stronger than you before. But do you know why they all failed? Because none of them could resist my endless power. Jiang Chen stood calmly with arms crossed, his gaze cold and steady. Lysita taunted him. Come on, let me see how long your spiritual energy can last. After observing for a moment, Jiang Chen clicked his tongue. So it's just a noisy punching bag with too much energy. Fine, I'll upgrade the target to something bigger. He gathered power and unleashed a devastating strike. Countless glowing spear lights shot toward Lysita at insane speed. He stood firm after the attack, silent and imposing, eyes still razor cold. Lysita was hit and staggered, her body trembling as she barely held on. This is a legendary weapon. It can destroy the soul body, impossible. So there's no need to worry about collateral damage here. Jiang Chen said nothing. Seeing her weakened state, he gripped his sword and rushed in. Time to take this hit. He flashed past, leaving an afterimage, and split Lysita's body in two. Her form scattered into nothingness. But in that moment, Jiang Chen glanced back, sensing something strange. A remnant soul? He raised his sword again and muttered. One strike wasn't enough? Then I'll add another. Just as he was about to finish her off, Lysita's spirit suddenly spoke. Hero, please stop. A beautiful girl appeared before him, speaking softly. Thank you for everything. I'm finally free. Jiang Chen was surprised and asked where she came from. She quickly replied, My name is Lesta. As you can see, I'm a remnant soul of the dragon race. My physical body below has already been possessed by an evil spirit. That was once my body. Jiang Chen sighed internally. So even the dead can talk now. At that moment, Lesta stepped closer and reached out to touch him. She spoke softly and emotionally. Hero, the continent of Ela is in danger, and we need your strength. Jiang Chen felt an odd sensation and said coldly, Let go, or my 40-meter sword is coming down. Lesta flinched and quickly replied, Don't swing it, don't swing it. Hero, please listen first. She paused, voice heavy with emotion. This story goes back hundreds of years. The ancient dragon race was born to protect the continent of Ela. We always fought against invaders threatening the land. This trial ground was originally a blessing from the continent, filled with hope. But one day, the evil spirit army invaded. To resist them, I led the beast armies into battle. The result is what you see now. We were completely defeated and turned into puppets of the evil spirits. I could only seal this remaining fragment of my soul deep inside. Jiang Chen listened and grew impatient. Just get to the point. Lesta quickly explained in panic. This trial ground has already been taken over by the evil spirits. It's part of their plan to crush all hope from Ila. Jiang Chen frowned and muttered. What exactly are you trying to say? Lesta ignored the question and asked back. Hero, why did you come here? He shrugged calmly. Just a mission, rewards. Hearing that, Lesta took out a scroll with certainty. Then it's exactly as I thought. Most who enter this trial are rising stars of Ila with great potential. They lure them in just to slaughter them. This is the evil spirit's plan. Jiang Chen crossed his arms and asked calmly, so according to you, this place has long turned into a black trap zone. One enters, one dies, and no one gets out alive? Lesta nodded with a deep voice. This is a treacherous domain controlled by evil spirits. Only beast tamers can pass the trial and claim rewards. But the geniuses who should have become future leaders of the Ella continent are unknowingly being killed here. The evil spirit army has long locked onto these talents. Every few decades, only a few appear, but so few actually survive over the past 100 years that no one even suspects anything. No one finds it strange. They only pity the sudden deaths here. I've seen this scene countless times, Jiang Chen muttered. I get it, so it's basically a bait and hunt setup. Suddenly, Lesta turned serious, locking eyes with him. Hero, tragedy is about to repeat itself. Only you can change it. Jiang Chen raised a brow. Interesting. So another top genius is being targeted? Lesta nodded urgently. Yes, right here. Jiang Chen rested his chin on his hand, thinking for a moment. Then he said casually, Don't tell me it's me, so I'm here to save myself? Lesta stammered before answering. Jiang Chen cut in. What are you hesitating for? She slowly opened a scroll, her voice soft but helpless. Hero, your strength is unquestionable, but the target of the evil army is forget it. Just look yourself. The scroll revealed an image of Lanisa, the chief, blocking a massive demon fist. Behind her, the masked man and the red-haired NPC girl were both heavily injured. Jiang Chen looked at it and frowned. Are you sure Shez the top genius you mentioned? Lesta tilted her head slightly, eyes glowing with hope. Yes, I can feel it. Hero, can you save her and save this continent? Jiang Chen fell silent, eyes scanning the dark space as he weighed everything. Then he said flatly, Not worth it. I'm leaving. He turned and walked away without hesitation. Lesta was stunned. What? Why, Hero? Jiang Chen stopped and looked back, his expression cold as ice. Come on, you're an ancient dragon soul. Even you ended up turned into a half-demon puppet.
If I go in, how is that any different from suicide?
Lesta quickly replied, voice urgent. I understand, but the evil spirits that once destroyed the world have long disappeared. Now only their subordinates remain. They aren't that strong. Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes. So can you guarantee those hidden monsters won't interfere? Lesta hesitated, voice fading. I can't guarantee that. Jiang Chen smirked. Then it changes nothing. Suddenly, Poo Poo appeared, eyes sparkling like a greedy child. Treasure. Dragon Clan treasures must be everywhere. If not, just make her give you 2 items. Jiang Chen sighed and glanced at her. What treasure? She's just a remnant soul now. What treasure could she possibly have? Lesta finally realized her last hope was slipping away and lowered her head. But then she looked up again with determination and reached out. Hero, I still have one last thing I can offer you. I can use a fragment of my soul to awaken a dragon heart within you. Jiang Chen raised a brow, slightly intrigued. Go on, Lesta continued firmly. Dragon blood and a dragon heart are what they fear most. Even after I die, the evil spirits cannot touch it. They would have to wait until my remains fully decay. But if the hero obtains a dragon heart, she hesitated, then sighed. Jiang Chen smirked. Say no more. Do you still need someone else for this? He glanced at Poo Poo with a teasing look. Lesta nodded faintly. Very well, please wait a moment, hero. With that, she faded away, turning into a floating sphere of mystical light. On another battlefield, the chief struggled against a massive monster, muttering, I can't even break its defense. This thing is beyond our level. Why is something like this here? Not far away, the purple-haired NPC girl was blasted back, her face covered in wounds. She gasped in pain. Damn it, my magic keeps getting disrupted. Nearby, the masked man raised his staff and shouted, Chief, I'm coming to help. In a split second, he charged forward and slammed a powerful strike into the monster. The chief was forced into a dangerous corner. She gritted her teeth, weighing whether to use that technique or find another way out. Suddenly, the monster roared and shifted targets, its vicious eyes locking onto the red-haired NPC girl. She panicked and screamed, Don't, come here, help. Seeing that, the chief didn't hesitate. She rushed forward, spiritual energy igniting in her hand like blazing fire. She blocked the monster's giant hand with her bare strength and roared, I won't let you touch her. The red-haired NPC trembled emotionally. Chief. The chief turned back with a calm but warm voice. Go inside. Leave this to me. At that moment, the monster roared again, shaking the battlefield as it charged forward at terrifying speed. The chief quickly calculated. With its insane regeneration, there was only one chance to finish it. No more hesitation. She raised her hand, condensing a massive sphere of energy. Sword spirit, answer my call. In an instant, she turned into a streak of light and slashed down at the monster. A blinding explosion erupted. The monster was split cleanly in two. The masked man and the purple-haired NPC watched in awe. Is that really the chief? That's insane. But the chief remained cold and calm. It's over. Let's move. However, it wasn't over yet. The monster's wounds began to close as it regenerated. The chief's expression changed. It absorbed even the sword spirit's power? How is that possible? Empowered, the monster roared and struck the chief hard. She staggered in pain, a fleeting thought crossing her mind. Is this the end? At that moment, Jiang Chen appeared, placing a hand on her shoulder. His tone was calm but mocking. Idiot, do you know you're making noise in my way? She realized it was him. The chief hurriedly warned him. It's you, run. I can still hold it off. But Jiang Chen said nothing. He simply picked her up, making her flinch. The monster roared and threw a punch at them both. Jiang Chen leapt lightly and dodged. Without pause, the monster twisted and launched another strike. Jiang Chen's eyes turned cold as he charged straight into its face. Quiet down. A burst of white smoke exploded from the monster's face. Jiang Chen stood there casually. That's more like it. He glanced at the chief. Stay over there. Don't get in the way. She worriedly replied. Be careful, give me a few minutes to recover, and I'll fight with you. Jiang Chen smirked. Relax. By the time that happens, it'll already be over. The chief grimaced in pain, barely holding herself up. Her legs felt like they were about to shatter. What is this thing's head even made of? Poo Poo suddenly appeared, speaking calmly. This is a giant race, only a few remain across the Ella continent. Jiang Chen was surprised. Giants? Seeing his confusion, Poo Poo continued. Though not as ancient as the dragon race, giants are one of the earliest beings on this continent. In simple terms, they can be considered ancestors of humanity. At that moment, the monster's body shook violently, as energy erupted around it like a storm. Jiang Chen clenched his fist and cursed. That damn dragon woman lied to us. She said only weak monsters were left here. Without hesitation, he drew his sword and shot forward like an arrow. One slash came down sharply, but the giant's body was like steel, shaking his arm violently. Jiang Chen clicked his tongue. Damn, this thing. Provoked, the giant turned and unleashed a devastating punch. From the side, the injured pair watched in shock. The red-haired NPC stammered. This is bad, we need to leave. After the exchange, Jiang Chen stepped back slightly. Tough as hell, is there even a way to cut this thing down? Poo Poo reappeared, teasing. To giants, dragons are just snacks. Unfortunately, you're even worse than snacks. The chief fell silent, torn between retreat and resolve. Meanwhile, the stubborn girl spoke first. If you want to leave, go ahead. I'm staying. I want to run too, but this is definitely part of the system's setup. If we leave now, the reward path is gone. The chief clenched her fist, eyes flashing with determination. If that's the case, then the choice is obvious. I won't abandon my benefactor and run, and I don't want that hero to die so early either. She paused to assess the situation. The trial time was long and could easily be interrupted, but with body enhancement and agility techniques, she could still contribute. The masked man, seeing everyone's morale rise, spoke up excitedly. Chief, everyone, I've got it. This is the demon-enchanted baseball bat. I spent 300 gold on it. Now I'm handing it over to you. He tossed the bat toward Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen caught it and weighed it in his hand. It didn't feel powerful, but he muttered, worth a try. Without hesitation, he swung it straight at the monster. The masked man's eyes went wide, veins popping as he shouted, What are you doing? The bat slammed into the monster's head and bounced off like it hit steel. The monster's tail whipped back instantly toward the bat. Jiang Chen's eyes flashed, he muttered, No risk, no reward. Big body, slow movement, old-school tiger hunting style. He moved in, drawing the monster's attention, and shouted to the chief. I'll distract it first. Then I'll drop underneath and cut open its belly. The chief nodded. Got it. I'll support you. Jiang Chen kept swinging the bat, continuously provoking the monster. Then, like a shadow, he slipped underneath its body. Now. The two outside shouted in unison, eyes burning with hope, we have to win. But just as Jiang Chen leapt up for the finishing blow, the monster suddenly wrapped its long tongue around him and swallowed him whole. From inside, he yelled, Oi! The masked man panicked, clutching his head. My 300 gold chief. Without hesitation, the chief rushed forward, raising her sword and pointing it at the monster. Spit him out. But the blade couldn't penetrate its skin, like hitting solid stone. She gritted her teeth. Damn it, I can't pull it out. The monster roared and swung its massive fist at her. The chief narrowed her eyes, ready to take the hit. Suddenly, the monster let out a painful roar and staggered. Inside, Jiang Chen laughed loudly. So this is what it feels like to have a dragon inside your body. The dragon's power, it really is the most poisonous thing to them. Outside, the monster thrashed violently, while Jiang Chen Inside its stomach, he grinned. If it hurts that much, I'll do you a favor and end it. He gathered strength and unleashed a massive internal strike. The monster exploded into pieces, scattering everywhere. Jiang Chen stepped out, dusting off his hands. Sorry about that. That was my exit route. He immediately turned and walked away. The chief felt the ground shaking and shouted, "It's collapsing. Everyone, run." Near the remains of the monster, Lesta appeared with a satisfied look. The infected giant has finally rested. Warriors, you've truly done it. At this rate, not only here, but the invading powers across the continent will be reduced as well, right? The scene shifted to a majestic castle. A minister knelt and reported, "Lord Spirit Commander, do you know where the old king has gone? Some say he left the palace with Master Mayan, but no one knows where." The Spirit Commander repeated coldly, "You're saying my father has left the palace?" Suddenly, he clutched his head in pain, screaming as he vomited a pitch-black substance. "What is this?" The subordinate panicked. "My lord, are you all right?" The Spirit Commander forced himself to stay calm and waved it off. "I'm fine, probably just work stress. With Master Mayan with him, my father is safe." But then his voice turned icy. Still, even Jiang Chen couldn't be captured, and he even tried to corrupt the Lumjiang city water source. A nearby advisor spoke cautiously, but with intent. "My lord, this man is not ordinary. If he can stand against those talents, perhaps we should negotiate with him instead." The Spirit Commander gritted his teeth, eyes burning with rage. "Let him do whatever he wants. Hell only ruin our plan to eliminate the remnants. Issue the order." The outbreak in Lumquang City was caused by Jiang Chen, an infiltrator of the remnant army. No cure is possible. Burn the entire city tonight. Under the pale moonlight, on a quiet street in Huai'an, 2 children stood under an old tree. "My balloon is stuck up there. Can you help me get it, please?" Huai'an glanced up and replied briefly. "That one? Wait." She murmured a spell, manipulating gravity, and floated up gently to retrieve the balloon. The 2 children cheered in joy, but their smiles slowly twisted. Their innocent expressions faded, revealing something sinister underneath. They whispered, "We saw it. We really saw it." Their eyes glinted with cunning intent. Huai'an, with a cold, sharp gaze, landed and handed the ball back to the kid, telling him to hold it carefully this time and not drop it again. A kid then spoke with a fake sweet voice, thanking her, and mentioned his cat was also stuck in a tree. But the moment she released her hand, Huai'an suddenly struck out with a heavy attack. The 2 kids grabbed their arms in pain, crying out that it hurt, and felt like their arms were broken. Huai'an turned away and left with a cold warning, saying these kids should be locked up when they get a few years older. She muttered, while walking, thinking Guangcheng was about to face something big, even though nothing seemed to be happening. Suddenly, an old woman rushed in and bumped into her, panic in her voice as she begged for help. Huai'an stayed calm and asked what was going on. The old woman stammered that over there, someone was eating people. Not far away, a chaotic street was filled with soldiers, struggling against a monster, screaming in fear as it approached. One desperate soldier charged forward with a stick, attacking the creature head-on. But the monster didn't even bother dodging. The strike slid off it like water flowing over stone. In a nearby corner, a mother and child hid behind the ruins, trembling in fear as the child cried that he didn't want to be eaten, while the mother tried to comfort him. Huai'an appeared on the opposite side, her sharp eyes scanning both the monster and the mother and child, muttering that the infection had already evolved to this level. The monster then stepped forward heavily, moving straight toward the 2 of them. Huai'an's anger flared as she thrust her hand forward, activating a massive gravity force and pressing her palm into the ground. An overwhelming pressure crashed down, pinning the monster firmly into the ground, completely immobilized. She glanced at the mother and child and signaled them to leave immediately. The 2 quickly ran away, filled with relief and hope. Huai'an observed the monster and analyzed that the nearby water wasn't heavily contaminated, meaning the infection couldn't have evolved this fast unless it was the one that slipped through earlier. At another location, a soldier screamed in agony as strange flames burned through his body. He collapsed, with 2 others suffering the same fate beside him. A cold voice echoed from above, saying apologetically that none of them would be leaving. Huai'an looked up in shock and saw a cloaked figure standing high above, ready to jump down, and she shouted, asking who he was and what he wanted. The man, Uchi, replied arrogantly that she didn't need to know his identity, only that everything was ordered by Jiang Chen. Huai'an tried to hold him back, but Uchi continued speaking. He declared that the infection was swallowing Guangcheng, and soon the northern kingdom would fall to their dark army, ruling the ELA continent. Huai'an said nothing, only snapped her fingers coldly, anger flashing in her eyes at his nonsense. Uchi mocked her, asking if she really believed she could stop it, then asked who she even was. Huai'an coldly stated she was a public security officer under the Secret Intelligence Bureau and told him he would be interrogated. Uchi was slightly surprised, asking why the Secret Intelligence Bureau was here. In another district, chaos erupted as strange flames exploded everywhere. Civilians and soldiers tried desperately to fight back, but the situation kept getting worse. Huai-an watched the destruction, feeling unease rising, and muttered that something was wrong since the firepower was divine, judgment, holy flame. She suddenly realized this holy flame could only come from the northern military, while Uchi removed his mask and mocked her for knowing too much. He said he would leave her a legend, as the hero who saved the city but died in duty. Uchi moved like a shadow and slashed past her, leaving a deep wound on her arm. Huai-an grabbed her shoulder, gritting her teeth in pain. Uchi calmly told her to relax and let him finish it, but Huai-an fired back angrily that the disgraceful one was clearly him. Uchi, self-proclaimed leader of the Wuha Spirit Army, showed fake regret, saying it was unfortunate. He said that although they had never met, she was young and part of the Secret Intelligence Bureau, and could have joined their grand ideal. Uchi revealed he had said too much, then prepared to finish her off, while Huai-an's mind flashed with the image of Jiang Chen. In that moment, Jiang Chen's figure flickered through Huai-an's mind. He would destroy the city, and if she had believed him, at least the civilians could have been saved. Her expression turned sad for a moment, but her eyes stayed firm. Suddenly, a powerful wave of energy surged in. Uchi startled and turned back, realizing the pressure was wrong, too strong. Countless iron chains rose from the shadows, wrapping around his legs and then his entire body, locking him down as he panicked, realizing it was a forbidden binding spell. The ones who appeared were the king of the kingdom and the old mage Mayan. The king spoke with overwhelming authority, saying he had come to Linguang City himself, otherwise he would never have believed what was happening. Uchi trembled in fear. Huai-an was shocked and stammered, "Father." Mayan spoke sternly, scolding her that he already warned her. Following others would make her forget her own training. Uchi froze, shocked, realizing she was the daughter of Lord Mei. Mayan calmly replied it was just a family role in the secret bureau, nothing unusual. The king turned a sharp gaze toward Uchi and asked if he had nothing to explain. Uchi broke into a cold sweat and stayed silent. The king decided to take him in and ordered everyone to be escorted away, while Mayan agreed. Mayan began chanting in a deep voice, calling upon the rain. Suddenly, iron chains erupted again and wrapped tightly around Mayan's body, shocking him. From the darkness, Ling Jun appeared with a cold gaze, saying this was the sealing formation Mayan himself had given him, never expecting to use it against him. Mayan stammered in shock, calling him Your Highness Ling Jun. Ling Jun landed calmly and told his father not to interfere anymore. The king looked disappointed and asked why his son had become a traitor to the empire. Ling Jun looked conflicted and said he had never betrayed the land. He valued it more than anyone, but happiness could not overcome suffering. Only hatred could unite the people and forge the will to resist everything. He said the Dark Army's destruction was coming, and he needed to teach the people this truth before the flood of catastrophe arrived. The king's anger exploded as he realized Ling Jun had planned all these disasters himself. Ling Jun calmly admitted it, saying it was still better than total annihilation. A heavy silence covered everyone as the tension peaked. Suddenly, the king pointed to the sky, breaking the silence, saying even the gods would be angered by this. Ling Jun coldly replied that even if the gods were angry, he did not care. At that moment, a loud report cut through the tension. Ling Jun had a new discovery. 50 kilometers away, they had captured someone who appeared to be Jiang Chen. An old man brought the unconscious Jiang Chen forward. Ling Jun's eyes flashed with excitement as a cruel smile appeared on his face. He lifted Jiang Chen into the air with his power. Then he turned to the king and said that fate itself was on his side. Otherwise, why would the Dark Legion's spy be delivered right into his hands? The king gritted his teeth in silence, while Mayan whispered in shock that it was that divine envoy. Suddenly, Huai-an raised her hand and activated gravity magic. But Ling Jun casually waved his hand, knocking her away and pinning her against a wall. He walked forward and said her control skills were decent, but she should not forget he once taught her everything. Ling Jun declared that Jiang Chen, the Dark Legion spy, had released a plague that destroyed Linguang City and left it in ruin. He said even the Northern Empire could only burn the city to stop the spread. Flames of destruction spread beneath him, painting the ground in blazing orange. Ling Jun raised his sword and declared he would execute Jiang Chen to avenge the suffering of Linguang's people. Without hesitation, he swung down the blade to end it all. The scene rewound to 1 hour earlier inside the Nguyen Luan Instance dungeon. 4 people stood at the exit after surviving the ordeal. The red-haired girl smiled brightly, relieved they finally escaped, while inviting the strong young man to visit Hong Tung Street. The masked man muttered that no one would want to visit their slum area anyway. The red-haired girl immediately argued back, saying whether he comes or not is his choice. But at least it should be 10 times stronger, right? The big sister stood lost in thought, her gaze drifting toward Jiang Chen, who stood silently not far away. She muttered that the chairman once predicted she had the greatest talent in 100 years. But maybe he was wrong after all. She waved her hand, and calmly but firmly said they should part ways here. Jiang Chen smiled and agreed, telling everyone to go ahead. Suddenly, a system notification echoed in his mind. The host has completed all preparations and can enter evolution mode at any time. Jiang Chen immediately sat down on the ground, to rest without hesitation. The system continued, stating all of his stats had doubled. He closed his eyes, slightly dissatisfied, muttering that only doubling, that was too stingy. The system then announced an additional reward, Western Thunder Trial. Fu Fu suddenly appeared, her eyes sparkling as she said she hadn't seen this in a long time. Jiang Chen frowned, grabbed Fu Fu by the leg and shook her, accusing her of tricking him and asking if her reward was just lightning strikes. Fu Fu, dizzy from being shaken, leaned on his shoulder and explained that the Thunder Trial could destroy anything below level 9, whether human or demon, without resistance. With Fu Fu's support, he could absorb the lightning energy to strengthen himself. Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes and asked if that meant he had to actively get struck by lightning. Fu Fu pouted, saying he didn't believe her, but the trial allowed 3 strikes each time. Jiang Chen sighed and decided to try it. A bolt of lightning struck down directly onto Jiang Chen. He coughed out water and muttered that although painful, his body had indeed absorbed a huge amount of energy, even more than after leveling up. Fu Fu glared at him, still annoyed, asking if she had lied. Jiang Chen suddenly realized only one of the 3 lightning strikes hit him and decided to go straight into the center of the storm. Before Fu Fu could react, he flew up into the air as countless bolts of lightning rained down on him. Jiang Chen gritted his teeth, but eventually lost consciousness under the overwhelming power. His body fell freely to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Fu Fu rushed over and sighed, saying he didn't die from fate but from stupidity, warning him that reckless behavior would destroy him. Jiang Chen's body slowly sank into the ground, completely motionless. In another corner, an old man under Ling Jun's side muttered that they must immediately deliver this man to Lord Wu Ha. Back in the present, Ling Jun raised his sword, preparing to pierce Jiang Chen's chest. But the king rushed in and blocked the strike, shouting in pain and regret, saying he had put too much pressure on his son. He said that after returning, Ling Jun would no longer be a regional lord, and coronation plans were suspended. Ling Jun closed his eyes, then suddenly complained, asking why his father couldn't understand him. He said that if there was a better leader, he wouldn't mind bearing the blame and being hated. But right now, he had to save the Empire's people. He declared that his father's sacrifice would become part of the tragedy that pushed humanity forward. His gaze turned icy as he pointed his sword at the king. At that moment, Jiang Chen suddenly woke up. His body was barely moving, but he flicked his finger, making Ling Jun's sword tremble. He calmly asked if Ling Jun wanted to turn the world into a social experiment. Ling Jun froze in shock, realizing he was still alive. Without answering, Jiang Chen flicked again, shattering the sword into pieces, then stared at him and asked if he had gone too far. Ling Jun erupted in anger and asked what else he was supposed to do. He claimed the groundwater of Linguang City had been completely contaminated, and Jiang Chen's purification ability was insufficient to cleanse it. Suddenly, Sonia appeared, saying firmly that Linguang City was no longer infected, and she had purified all the water sources. She bowed respectfully to Jiang Chen, thanking him for his guidance. Ling Jun froze in shock as Sonia looked up. She proudly said she had followed his teachings and finally developed a wide area purification spell. Jiang Chen turned slightly surprised, asking if this was the celestial light technique. Sonia smiled brightly, saying she hadn't even named it yet, but that name sounded good. Jiang Chen thought to himself that Srank magic should take endless effort and years of accumulation, yet Sonia had created it hundreds of years early, with just a bit of stimulation. She was truly a genius. He looked at Sonia and said they would call it the celestial light technique. Sonia lowered her head respectfully, saying Jiang Chen was always an inspiration, but she disagreed with Ling Jun's actions and warned that if he insisted, she would use holy light to burn him. Ling Jun roared in fury, insisting he was not wrong and could never be wrong. Jiang Chen's eyes turned cold as he threw a straight punch into Ling Jun's stomach, saying fine, then the world must be wrong instead. The punch exploded into a vortex of force, slamming Ling Jun hard into the wall. Jiang Chen stepped forward, grabbed his collar, raised his fist, and asked why he didn't just give up. Suddenly, Ling Jun spat out a stream of poisonous smoke. Jiang Chen dodged effortlessly, mocking him for still using childish tricks at his age. Looking at the struggling Ling Jun, Jiang Chen asked coldly what this situation even was anymore. From the shadows, Lexa appeared and silently transferred a message to Jiang Chen, asking him to help retrieve something inside that man's body. Before he could respond, a horned monster suddenly appeared, exuding arrogance, declaring himself Shagley Logan, commander of the Dark Legion. He said the humans were stronger than before, shocking the king into panic. Sonia tried to act, but the king stopped her, warning her not to rush in. Logan smiled arrogantly, claiming he could control chaos itself, and that reckless action would only bring disaster. The king shouted, asking why the being he had once sealed was now inside his son's body. Logan laughed, saying their sealing methods were meaningless, and that possessing a future crown prince was far easier than direct war. The king erupted in rage, realizing his son had been corrupted from the very beginning. Logan admitted Ling Jun had resisted more than expected, but would soon fully submit, and declared the continent would be baptized in chaos. Ling Jun knelt on the ground, trembling, muttering that he might be the vessel of dark energy. Suddenly, Logan was shocked as Jiang Chen appeared right beside him in midair, calmly saying he needed to leave something behind. Without hesitation, Jiang Chen unleashed a surge of power. Logan roared, asking if he had gone insane. Jiang Chen smiled and said to crush everything. A massive ancient dragon phantom erupted, tearing Logan apart as he screamed that this was ancient dragon power, before his body shattered completely. Everyone stood frozen in shock. Jiang Chen landed and casually muttered that he was too weak. The king suddenly spoke, calling him a divine envoy. Jiang Chen looked around confused and asked who that even was. The king explained that Logan's manifestation was only a fragment of his will, not his true body, which could not descend easily, or the consequences would be catastrophic. Jiang Chen still looked confused, muttering it was just a fragment. No wonder it felt off. The king thanked him on behalf of the people. Suddenly, Sonia warned that Logan's energy was still gathering in the sky. The shattered pieces of Logan reformed, his voice mocking them for underestimating him and calling himself a void observer. Everyone looked up as Logan fully regenerated, surrounded by violent purple lightning. Jiang Chen smiled and said it was still alive, perfect for a warm-up. Logan roared that pushing power limits on this continent would bring a lightning apocalypse, and he would bury them in it. Sonia repeated in fear, a lightning catastrophe. The king and Mayan both confirmed the phenomenon was real and warned of disaster, saying they would do everything to resist, but survival was uncertain. The king asked Mayan if he truly could not hold it. Mayan replied it was not about holding it, but whether anyone could survive at all, urging them to spread the truth. At that moment, Ling Jun suddenly stood up and said firmly for everyone to step aside. He would use lightning guidance technique and draw a lightning storm onto himself as repayment to the Empire's citizens, declaring he was ready. Before he could look cool, Jiang Chen rushed in and kicked him straight in the face, sending him crashing down. Jiang Chen shouted at him to get lost and stop acting like a kid, asking if he even had the strength to stand there and take hits. He then stood proudly like a god of lightning, red energy crackling wildly around his body. Huai An and Sonia called out to him in worry, but Jiang Chen only smirked and muttered that this was what he wanted, yet it didn't hurt him, and he couldn't absorb any energy. Fu Fu teased him, saying it was obvious the system lightning wasn't some crude energy he could just absorb like that. Lightning rained down densely, but Jiang Chen moved like a shadow, easily dodging every strike, leaving only afterimages behind. He gathered power in his hand and muttered that if that was the case, then it was useless. Without hesitation, he threw something into the sky, causing a massive explosion of blinding light like fireworks. Ling Jun was shocked as Jiang Chen slowly landed and said coolly that it was over, he was tired. But immediately after, he swayed and collapsed unconscious. The king panicked and shouted, calling him the divine envoy. The only response was Jiang Chen's loud snoring as he fell into deep sleep. Sometime later in the royal palace, a servant reported that Jiang Chen's family had been invited. Jiang Lu, his younger brother, nervously asked if Jiang Chen was okay. The king reassured him that Jiang Chen was only in a deep sleep and had been placed under royal protection. Jiang Lu bowed gratefully, saying he was relieved as long as his brother was safe. The king said Jiang Chen had saved the entire empire and would be personally awarded when he woke up. At the Jiang residence, servants discussed how Jiang Chen's reputation had skyrocketed, with merchants even giving free goods because of his name. In the palace, soldiers also argued over Jiang Chen's legend, some doubting the rumors, but others insisted Sonia herself confirmed Jiang Chen had cured the plague in Linguang City. On the city wall, a blue-haired man listened quietly and decided to test Jiang Chen's strength himself. Without hesitation, he rushed forward at high speed. 2 guards were shocked and shouted an alert. The blue-haired man effortlessly broke through them and mocked their slowness. The guards collapsed as he casually walked on. Another squad tried to block him, but he scoffed at their level and said they weren't even qualified to guard him in his homeland. He unleashed a sword strike that wiped out the entire squad in an instant. He continued forward, muttering that this was the Empire's strength, and he hoped Jiang Chen wouldn't disappoint him. In the palace corridor, Jiang Lu stood in his way and asked what he was doing. She blocked him, refusing to let him near her brother. The blue-haired man warned her to move or get hurt, while Jiang Lu panicked, realizing Jiang Chen had not returned yet. Suddenly, her body reacted on its own, releasing a burst of power. She turned and struck the man's back with a heavy blow. He grimaced in shock, recognizing a strange martial technique. His back armor was torn apart by the impact. Jiang Lu looked down as the blue-haired man struggled to stand. He realized in disbelief that a woman of her level should not be able to land such a strike. He roared, demanding Jiang Chen come out, claiming he was the prince of the Gainam kingdom and wanted a fair fight. Jiang Lu angrily shouted back that she was the one who hit him and told him to come at her instead. Nai frowned, eyes full of suspicion, asking if the punch earlier was done by him. It was me. Jiang Lu felt confused inside. Even he didn't understand why his body moved on its own. Nai clenched his fist and stepped forward, saying, "You think I'm stupid? Fine, I'll give you one more chance. Hit me. If the result is the same as before, I won't pursue it." Jiang Lu hesitated and asked again, "Really?" He nodded firmly, "Of course." Jiang Lu closed her eyes, calm as if she had heard nothing strange. "Then I'll strike," she said. The blue-haired man stood there, thoughts spinning. He suspected Jiang Chen was secretly manipulating things, and that energy would cling to the punch. If he observed closely, he could track the target immediately. But before he could wait, Jiang Lu unleashed a thunderous punch. The blue-haired man was blasted away, crashing into a stone wall as dust exploded. He panicked internally, shouting why he still couldn't sense anything. Jiang Lu stepped forward, eyes cold, saying, "You were the one who told me to hit you." The blue-haired man froze, hair covering half his face. Then he muttered with a sinister smile that he understood now. It wasn't energy, it was invisibility fist combined with stealth sorcery. "Jiang Chen, am I right?" He moved toward Jiang Lu with sharp intent. Jiang Lu panicked slightly, thinking something's wrong. Did I hit him too hard? Is he still resisting? Before she could think further, he roared that if she struck again, he would definitely capture her like a frog. But before he finished, Jiang Lu rushed in and threw another straight punch without hesitation. The heavy blow sent him flying into an ancient tree as leaves shook violently. He muttered weakly that something was wrong. The motion of leaves and shadows all matched one person's trajectory. Jiang Lu frowned and asked if he was okay, joking if he had overdosed on something yesterday. His face was burned and scratched, but his eyes stayed determined as he roared for another strike to uncover the truth. Jiang Lu turned away, annoyed, saying she didn't understand his goal, but this feeling was disturbing. Before she finished, the blue-haired man rushed in, growling not so fast. "Today, if you don't hit me properly, you won't leave this place. You've sparked my interest. Even if you explain Jiang Chen's technique, I won't listen. I will analyze it myself, even if it takes 100 or 10,000 attempts." Jiang Lu grew furious, eyes flashing cold. "Do you even understand human language?" She frowned and slammed a punch into his stomach, saying her brother was unconscious from the start and only she was involved. The blue-haired man spat blood and flew upward like a broken kite. Jiang Lu watched him, a hint of worry in her eyes. "This is bad, I used too much force," she muttered. "Hez strange, but he didn't deserve to be sent flying that far. If he crashes into the garden, it'll be troublesome. Next time I must be more careful." Jiang Lu stood up straight as King Gong and the great mage Mahan walked out from the teleport gate. She bowed respectfully, reporting that a strange man had caused trouble. King Gong nodded, frowning, saying he also sensed it. Mahan stroked his white beard and cast a detection spell. After thinking, he asked if it was Jiang Chen's faction. King Gong nodded sharply, saying Senza only has that one suspect. Jiang Lu immediately interrupted, confidently saying yes, it was him. He is obsessed with Kaka. King Gong smiled reassuringly, saying they would protect the divine envoy. Before he finished, a figure appeared silently behind him. Jiang Chen spoke calmly, saying he already said he wasn't some divine envoy. Change how you address him. King Gong quickly turned and respectfully said, "Divine envoy Jiang Chen." Jiang Lu smiled brightly. After a while, the group entered a sealed room. Jiang Chen sat down, lifting a teacup, eyes distant. Suddenly, he turned to King Gong and said calmly that the system upgrade was getting slower each time. Could he help with it? King Gong replied solemnly that he could fulfill any request from Jiang Chen, but some things the Northern Empire might not be able to obtain. Jiang Chen took a sip of tea and replied calmly that it was fine, just explain it. King Gong spoke slowly. The Fenglin Pool Essence is a specialty of Fenglin Kingdom. If you place in the top 5 of their martial tournament, you can obtain it. As for the Eastern Nether Frost Dew, it is far more difficult. You must collect it at the exact moment when Winter Frost and Rain Dew appear at the same time. It depends heavily on timing and luck. Great Mage Mayan stroked his beard and added seriously that the biggest issue was time. The martial tournament and the formation of the Frost Dew never align. If you attend one, you miss the other. Jiang Chen nodded and muttered that it meant waiting another year. He frowned and thought that in a pay-to-win world like this, why not just give him a clone technique? Someone in his house already knew such a skill, and if she went, her value alone would exceed the Frost Dew. He turned to the king and asked calmly if the tournament was difficult. King Gong replied solemnly that it was a competition for young fighters who had never participated before, and recent winners were around 7th tier peak. Jiang Chen smirked and said that 7th tier peak wasn't hard, thanked them, and decided to head home. Hearing he was leaving, Great Mage Mayan quickly offered help. Jiang Chen nodded lightly and said fine. The scene shifted to a peaceful land filled with fresh air. Jiang Chen and Jiang Lu stood there. He sighed in relief, saying they were finally home. Jiang Lu turned excitedly and urged him to go, saying Meng had probably prepared meat waiting for them. Jiang Chen laughed, feeling relaxed. Suddenly, a small figure appeared. Fu Fu spoke playfully, asking if Jiang Chen had found a way to obtain the materials yet. Jiang Chen smirked and said the best candidate for the tournament was right beside him. Fu Fu grinned brightly and teased him that he should remember she would be the one to act. Jiang Chen wouldn't be able to leave her out. Jiang Chen grabbed Fu Fu with a mischievous smile and said of course there would be more people involved. Fu Fu's face changed as she shouted what he was doing. Before she could finish, Jiang Chen suddenly shouted for Jiang Lu to be careful, saying an assassin was coming. Fu Fu, still in his grip, sighed helplessly, thinking he had gone overboard again. Without hesitation, Jiang Chen threw Fu Fu forward. She flew like lightning, screaming that she would kill him. Jiang Chen shouted back in provocation for her to die. Fu Fu kept yelling angrily that she really wanted to kill him. On Jiang Lu's side, she looked around cautiously, wondering where the assassin was, then spotted the small figure flying toward her. With lightning reflexes, Jiang Lu activated her divine martial technique and safely caught Fu Fu in her arms. She smiled gently and said Fu Fu was safe now. Fu Fu, face dark with frustration, let out a loud shout and immediately tried to escape. Jiang Lu panicked and ran toward Jiang Chen, calling out that something was wrong with Fu Fu. Jiang Chen waved it off calmly, saying, not to worry. Fu Fu had excellent instincts, reactions, and strength. He then looked at Jiang Lu and asked if she was confident enough to help him compete in the tournament. Jiang Lu hesitated and said she would try. Before they even entered the gate, Jiang Chen smelled the rich aroma of grilled meat. Inside, servants of the Jiang family were grilling meat with smoke rising. Fu Fu was already holding a skewer, praising the flavor and saying she hadn't eaten like this in a long time. A servant nearby fanned the fire and smiled, telling her to eat more. Fu Fu's eyes lit up and she asked if it was true. The large servant nodded enthusiastically, saying there was plenty, and more would be brought out. At that moment, the Jiang siblings stepped into the courtyard. Jiang Chen frowned slightly, wondering where that girl came from sneaking around. Jiang Lu smiled brightly, relieved that Fu Fu was safe. The servants immediately turned toward them and shouted that the young master had returned. The tall servant lifted a large bag of meat and laughed heartily, telling them to eat since there was still plenty. Fu Fu chewed happily and declared that everything belonged to her. Jiang Chen stepped forward and looked at the blonde-haired man, asking calmly how things had been recently. The blonde man nodded confidently and said everything was fine, adding that they had heard about the young master's great victory over the remnants in Longguang City. Loudly that no one from the Jiang clan would let them lose face. They had already killed many evil energy demon hounds. The blonde man nodded in agreement. Jiang Chen turned to the blonde man and asked calmly about the evil energy demon hounds and why they appeared here. The blonde man shook his head helplessly, saying no one knew. They had been appearing more and more lately and couldn't be wiped out. Jiang Chen frowned and thought that the evil energy legion might be taking revenge on him by striking from this side. Suddenly, the large man stepped forward and laughed, saying it wasn't all bad since the prepared demon hound meat was a rare delicacy. Fu Fu, who was chewing a skewer, instantly turned pale. She trembled and asked if they were feeding her something filthy and poisonous from those monsters. Jiang Chen lifted a skewer, examined it briefly, and calmly reassured her it was definitely not that. But Ahu suddenly widened his eyes and stammered that the intruders weren't only demon hounds but also insect-type energy beasts like sandworms. He then revealed that the meat Fu Fu was eating was specially prepared sandworm meat he created. Fu Fu's face turned completely white, and she immediately started vomiting. Jiang Chen suddenly changed the topic and asked calmly where his father and Miss Wei were. The blonde man was surprised and explained that the young master had broken through and gone into seclusion a week ago. As for Miss Wei, she had been staying deep underground and rarely appeared. Jiang Chen frowned and asked who was handling the energy beasts if they weren't here. The blonde man confidently said it was handled by them. Even though the beasts were around level 6, they could barely deal with them using the martial techniques taught by the young lady. Jiang Lu smiled and added that she had encouraged everyone to train together. Ahu clenched his fist and said the young master's martial art was extremely powerful, allowing them to handle even higher-level beasts, despite only learning a few moves. Jiang Chen calmly nodded and asked how many people were training. The blonde man replied that almost everyone in the clan was interested. The large man also said it was their responsibility and begged him not to blame the young lady if they failed. Jiang Chen smirked and said that wasn't the issue. He thought that the system-granted technique required extremely high talent and spiritual power, yet many in the Jiang clan were still able to learn it. He then said he would hand over the remaining parts of the technique, and each person's progress would depend on their ability. In a week, he would bring everyone, including Jiang Lu, to Fenglin Kingdom to broaden their horizons. The blonde man cheered excitedly, and even the large man solemnly promised to train hard and not disappoint him. The scene shifted to a bustling street in the capital of Fenglin Kingdom. The blonde man looked around in awe, saying the capital was truly grand and magnificent. The large man teased him for being unsophisticated, saying he was judging too early since he hadn't even seen the Northern Empire capital. Ahead, the Jiang siblings walked while discussing plans. Jiang Chen said he would take Jiang Lu to register first, then head to the Eastern Netherfrost Dew afterward. Jiang Lu nodded and agreed. Soon, the three arrived at the martial tournament registration counter. The clerk said anyone who wanted to join should register there. Jiang Chen calmly stepped forward and took out a small token, saying it was from the Northern Empire. The old clerk frowned and asked if the Northern Empire really sent someone this year and what their cultivation level was. Jiang Lu hesitated and said it was probably 3rd-year level. The clerk looked at her sharply and asked if she was sure she was the one registering, not Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen calmly replied that there was a problem. He was only 2nd tier. The clerk stroked his beard and said the martial tournament was not a place for casual competition, and at 2nd or 3rd tier they could end up at the bottom or even lose their lives. He asked if they were certain. Jiang Lu stood straight and firmly said she had already decided and would participate. The clerk told them to go to the tournament grounds in the city center in 3 days. Jiang Chen turned to Jiang Lu and gently said she should rest or explore the city for the next 2 days. Jiang Lu nodded with a bright smile, saying she would manage. On the other side, the blonde man patted his chest and looked at Jiang Chen, saying they would protect the young lady well. The strong woman also chimed in excitedly. Jiang Chen simply said he would leave first. In the next moment, he vanished like smoke. The blonde man and the large man stood there, staring at each other in silence. The blonde man sighed, saying it would be great if he could one day reach the young master's level. The large man nodded firmly, telling him to keep training. The young master would never treat them unfairly. Suddenly, a cold blade was pressed against the large man's neck, shocking both him and Jiang Lu. A group of fierce bandits surrounded all 4 of them. One of them roared for them not to move and demanded they hand over all valuables. The moment he finished speaking, a flash of light pierced straight through the leader's head. The entire bandit group collapsed like falling trees. The large man froze in shock and asked when Jiang Hu had become this strong. The blonde man also shook his head and said it wasn't him. He hadn't even moved yet. A red-haired man holding a cross-shaped weapon stepped forward arrogantly, smirking as he asked if they were here for the martial tournament. He added that it was amusing for such violence to happen in Fenglin capital. The large man stepped forward, cautiously asking if he had dealt with all the bandits. The red-haired man shrugged and said it was just trash cleanup. The red-haired man closed his eyes slightly and introduced himself as Aus, a representative of Fenglin Kingdom and a participant in the martial tournament. He said he liked making friends and invited them to his estate to train and prepare for the tournament, offering safety and mutual exchange. The strong woman laughed and said he was bold for inviting strangers so casually, but she liked it. The blonde man turned to Jiang Lu and warned that the man didn't seem trustworthy and suggested staying at a nearby inn instead. The large man surprisingly smiled and said there was no need to fear. If someone wanted to target them, running wouldn't help. Staying somewhere comfortable was better. Oz smiled politely and asked about their roasted wind bird specialty. The large man proudly said they had plenty and invited him to eat freely. The blonde man finally asked Jiang Lu for her decision. Jiang Lu shrugged and said she would follow the group. Os turned around and smiled, inviting them to follow him. Soon after, inside a luxurious mansion, an elder bowed respectfully to a blue-haired man and asked what the trip to the Northern Empire had yielded. The blue-haired man, the same one previously beaten by Jiang Lu, frowned and said he gained nothing. The Northern Empire was as disappointing as expected. The elder nodded and reported that the August family had invited him to discuss the tournament. He also mentioned rumors of the Wem's secret realm opening this year. The blue-haired man narrowed his eyes and asked if Wem was the place that opens once every 100 years. The elder confirmed it. It was said the winner would not only receive rewards but also gain access to Wem. Even the Northern Empire had sent participants. The elder said those participants were from the Jiang family. The blue-haired man's eyes lit up with a sinister smile, asking if Jiang Chen was also participating and staying at the August estate. He said he would go meet him. At the August estate, the blonde man looked around in surprise, saying there were many people. Os smiled and said these were participants from various countries and invited them to eat freely. The large man stared at the roasted windbird and immediately gave in, saying he would not hold back. Suddenly, the doors were kicked open. A man from the Ami kingdom named Jia Wen stormed in, pointing at Aus and demanding an explanation for his actions. Aus calmly replied that he was simply hosting guests. Jia Wen clenched his fist and accused him of trying to monopolize the tournament participants, warning him that he would not allow such behavior. The surrounding servants were shocked and whispered, asking who this man was. One of the people beside Aus looked confused and asked what participation rights meant. Jia Wen said loudly that the August family should know better. This year, the Wem's secret realm would open, and only the top 30 of the martial tournament would be allowed inside. Jiang Hu asked what Wem was. The blonde man excitedly explained that it was a secret realm that opens once every 100 years, filled with treasures, techniques, and divine weapons. Anything obtained there could equal 10 years of cultivation. Jia Wen sneered coldly and said only the strong deserved it. He would never allow trash to benefit from it. Another contestant stepped forward angrily, asking why they were being excluded if entry was based on strength. Before he could finish, Jia Wen appeared behind him in an instant. Without time to react, the man was struck in the face and lifted by the neck as Jia Wen shouted what qualifications they had, relying only on small country slots to enter the selection. He said people like them couldn't even pass Ami Kingdom's preliminary rounds, and letting them into the top 30 would be an insult to Wem. Os frowned slightly and calmly told him to stop getting angry. He then agreed that Jia Wen had a point and suggested a screening. Anyone who could defeat either him or Jia Wen could stay. Otherwise, their participation rights would be handed to someone more suitable. The invited contestants erupted in anger, accusing Aus of deception and saying they had trusted him. Some decided to leave immediately. Aus, the red-haired man, remained calm and raised a finger. 2 flashes of light shot out instantly, striking one of the protesting men. The man collapsed, clutching his chest and coughing blood, asking how dare he do this and whether he feared being reported to Fenglin Kingdom. Os smiled faintly and said he was doing this for their own good. The tournament wasn't a place full of saints, but a place where monsters fought. If they died later, it would be worse. He then said anyone unwilling could leave, and anyone confident could step forward. The large man Jiang Dong's anger flared after seeing this and called him arrogant. He roared and charged at Aus, saying he would teach him a lesson as a member of the Jiang family from the Northern Empire. The crowd erupted, shouting for him to win and beat Aus down. Aus sneered and said a 5th-year cultivator like him was asking for death. He dodged the punch effortlessly and unleashed a wind blade. The sharp wind slash sent Jiang Dong flying and crashing heavily to the ground. The contestants were stunned, saying he was finished. That attack was too strong. Jiang Lu clenched her fists in worry. The blonde man quickly reassured her that Jiang Dong would be fine. Jiang Dong struggled to stand, admitting in pain that he couldn't handle this opponent. He said continuing would only worsen his injuries and affect his cultivation. As stepped forward coldly and repeated the word cultivation influence. He turned to Jia Wen and asked what he meant earlier. Jia Wen growled at Aus, asking what he had just done. Aus shrugged and said he hadn't held back at all. The blonde man thought quickly, realizing the intelligence reports about the Jiang family never mentioned this. A normal 5th-year shouldn't be able to survive that cleanly. The surrounding contestants whispered in shock, saying the Jiang family from the Northern Empire wasn't as weak as rumored. Jiang Dong, pale-faced, approached Jiang Lu and apologized for embarrassing her. Jiang Lu asked anxiously if he was really okay. He forced a smile and said it was fine. It wouldn't affect his cultivation. The blonde man frowned and analyzed that the attack level should have been manageable, so why was he overwhelmed? Jiang Dong shook his head and explained that the attack contained hidden spiritual energy beneath its surface. A single mistake would have been fatal, so he refused to continue. The blond man cracked his wrist and said he understood now, stepping forward to try himself. He stood before Os and said as a member of the Jiang family of the Northern Empire, he would now learn from him. Os smirked and mocked him for being even weaker than the last one. Before he finished speaking, the blond man vanished like a ghost and appeared behind Aus, ready to strike, saying he would attack first. August scoffed arrogantly, telling them not to get too full of themselves, or they'll lose control. A nameless soldier even dared to touch him, so he casually ordered Lan Feng to scratch his hand as an apology. But suddenly, the blond man moved like lightning and grabbed August by the collar. The crowd around them erupted in cheers, saying the fight had started. Someone shouted that the Jiang family was hiding something deeper, since even two top experts were now clashing with them. The blond man stood in front of August, muttering proudly that thanks to Jiang Dong's reminder, he used his second stage power to break the hidden spiritual energy in August's technique. He then looked at him coldly. Come on, continue. August frowned, sounding annoyed. Second stage power, a high-level technique. Across the entire continent, only a handful of people even know it exists. Javan stepped in from behind, his tone suspicious. August, what are you doing? Are you pretending to fight while secretly holding back, waiting for them to submit their entry rights before dealing with us? August turned and shouted back angrily, Idiot, from the beginning to the end, I never held back. If you don't believe me, go fight him yourself. Jiao Wen bit his lip. Fine, fight then. They're just answers anyway, easy to crush. Come here then, I'll be your opponent. Inside the large mansion, two figures collided and clashed violently. Jiao Wen's face turned pale as he roared. What is going on? Why is he still holding on? The blond man spat out blood, but still forced himself to stand. Jiao Wen raised his hand and shouted, Fall. A lightning-fast punch slammed straight down. The blond man collapsed in pain, gasping heavily. Jiang Lu rushed over in panic. Jiang Hu, are you okay? Jiang Hu struggled up, face pale, and muttered to the young lady that he was fine. Then he looked at Jiao Wen and gave up. I can't win. Jiao Wen laughed loudly in triumph, throwing his head back. Ha ha ha, I win, I actually won. August frowned slightly and mocked him. Jiao Wen, I really don't understand what you're so happy about. Jiao Wen snorted in frustration. August continued, 13 strikes. You needed 13 moves to take down a Tier 4 rookie, and you still don't get it? Jiao Wen's expression darkened. Damn it. Just who exactly are these guys? A Tier 4 level, I could crush them with a single finger. Suddenly, August stepped forward toward the 4 members of the Jiang family and spoke calmly. I apologize to everyone from the Jiang family for the disturbance earlier. Truthfully, the Jiang family is worthy of respect. Jiang Hu clenched his fist, eyes flashing. So what you mean is we've qualified to participate? August pursed his lips and replied coldly. Take it however you want. Let's go. Suddenly, several unknown figures rushed in, throwing daggers flashing in their hands. Someone shouted, Be careful. All 4 of them, dodge. August sneered, his eyes turning sharp. As expected, the Jiang family really is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Inside the Jiang group, Jiang Lu frowned and said firmly, These guys, they're the same ones who caused trouble with us on the street earlier. Jiang Hu turned to August with suspicion. August, what do you mean by this? Are you admitting this is aimed at us? August smiled faintly, his tone cold. Of course, if you were just weak nobodies, you'd only need to submit your entry and it would be over. But now that the Jiang family shows strength and potential, yet lacks any backing, how could we possibly miss the chance to eliminate you?